the most physically and verbally attacked public figure or politician of modern times. Yes, you will know of some of the incidents: milkshakes thrown in my face, placards bashed over my head. But let me promise you, you only know about a fraction of the number of times that I've been assaulted. It would seem from the last couple of years, from the way I've been treated, that the press would rather not misused. For over 20 years now, I have been subject to constant demonization by the
London,
press.
following Morocco's 2-0 defeat to France in last night's World Cup quarter-final. One police officer was injured when a group of people blocked traffic on Edgware Road, setting off fireworks and throwing bottles.
Public figure
and early
politician of modern times. Yes, you will know of some of the incidents: milkshakes thrown in my face, placards bashed over my head. But let me promise you, you only know about a fraction of the number of times that I've been assaulted. It would seem from the last couple of years, from the way I've been treated, that the press would rather our members of Parliament had no assets and no wealth at all. They seem to fundamentally object to any MP that has outside income. Indeed, they view those that have continuing business interests with severe scepticism. Making money is not a crime. Let me be absolutely clear. After the furore and the media pile-on, well, not just the media, the other political parties too.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Yes, you'll find out why there's a few giggles here in the studio in just a moment. It is Friday, July the 10th. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. It's Ian Collins in for... I'm never sure if I'm in for Mark Dolan or Jeremy Kyle, but you know, it's all of the above, and it all mounts to the same deep joy that is Talk Breakfast. And of course, you join us as the new Prime Minister, well, in waiting, Andy Burnham, turns out to be the only candidate to be backed by the vast majority of MPs, so it's now official. Let's have your feelings, please, on Prime Minister Andy Burnham. 0344 499 1000. You can voice notice there. I noticed David Miliband, he, the former high-profile front bench grinning socialist, backing Burnham. Or is he on manoeuvres? Is there something else going on? Elsewhere, Kemi Badenoch is purging her party of net zero fanboys, apparently. She wants would-be MPs who worship at the altar of the climate crisis gone. Back to that by-election, as we reported, I think it was yesterday afternoon, one of Labour's biggest donors has pledged to fund Count Binface in his Clacton by-election battle with Nigel Farage. This is the green energy tycoon Dale Vince, ready to splash the cash. And a prison invited a drag artist to entertain sex offenders attending an LGBT sports day. The walkaway outside the segregation unit in His Majesty's Prison Moorland near Doncaster was decked out in coloured rainbow sheets reflecting the colours of the LGBT flag for the event. What a nice thing to do for the lads down there on Sea Wing. Let's get a sports day. Go do the rainbow one, boys. Yeah, let's do the rainbow. Yeah, drag queen, get her in. Come on. Fantastic. What a way to spend taxpayers' money. Sports day over there at the local penitentiary in Doncaster. Charlie Rowley is with us. Sorry, have we peaked too soon, Charlie?
I went down very well. Honestly, it's one of the best performances of my life.
That's right. Off to the scrubs now.
I mean, what a story. What an absolute story that is. Taxpayers' money.
I know.
Less, I should imagine.
It is somebody somewhere. It's like all of these stories. Somebody somewhere decided, they had a meeting and they decided, why don't we have a sports day for the offenders? And then someone went, something's not quite working on this. Something's not quite working. We need a twist on it. And they would have looked at it, well, I don't know, fancy dress? No, it doesn't work really. I haven't got the choice in the dressing up box is limited these days. LGBT, get the rainbows up. Fantastic. Let's get a drag queen in for the sex offenders down there on the wing. It seems extraordinary that I'm not so perturbed about a drag queen or a stand-up comedian, whoever it happened to be, but it's just the whole idea. You know, it smacks of cabaret and yay, you know, and almost something you wouldn't imagine that would happen in a prison.
No. And
the prison sports day.
Yes. Featuring, you know, yes, Miss Take or something, or, you know,
That's
whatever her name might be. But it is...
Layla Lashes is coming on. I hate to think what the sack race looked like. So that's the... We'll come back to three-legged race. That's off the agenda. We'll come back to that in a moment. Andy Burnham is definitely going to be the Prime Minister, Charlie Rowley. There's the serious news of the day, if we can pick up on that.
Yes.
I mean, we sort of knew it anyway, but he's now reached the... Actually, I think he was technically one short of the official number. He got the 80 backing, but the majority of MPs would be 320... I've got the data here somewhere. It doesn't sound very good, does it? I did have the data. I haven't got the data anymore. But he's not really one short. It's just that some MPs are on holiday, but they're going to back him, so... Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a funny old place that we're in, isn't it? Because we're sort of now waiting just for that handover to take place. So government has completely stalled. Civil servants won't be responding to anything that the current number 10 machine want, what the Prime Minister might be trying to cram in before he actually has to depart. We're now waiting just for Andy Burnham to come in. So the country is sort of, you know, just poised for Andy Burnham to... Which does show that actually, despite all of the, you know, chaos and, you know, conversation that we have day in, day out about the government and the decisions that they make, actually things can tick on. Things do... Life goes on. Yeah. Aside from whether it's Burnham, whether it's Kier Starmer, whether it's another party altogether. Things can... You know, we are responsible for keeping the country ticking over.
True, but it's odd because I spoke to a Home Office minister last night at a function, and she said, I said, how's it going? And she said, well, how do you think it's going? And it's almost like we're all probably going to be losing our jobs. Well, you're not losing your MP job. You've always got that. But I would imagine that from the ministerial aspect of, in this case, the Home Office, I mean, obviously the Home Office still runs regardless of who's in charge. And in fact, I'd imagine permanent secretaries and the like go, it doesn't really make much difference to us. These MP characters just sell the policy on the telly. Life goes on. But I suppose for the teams that are around there and ministerial teams in places like the Home Office, it's probably a bit weird going into work going, we might not be sitting here next week.
Yeah, it will be, and it'll be... a sort of a bittersweet sort of, you know, feeling, because, you know, you've got ministers, as you say, that have been making some tough decisions or trying to make tough decisions. Now, whether they've made the right ones or not is always up for debate. And by and large, I think the Home Office, to be fair, even though we do hear an awful lot of stories that relate to the Home Office where we haven't been able to deport people that we should be able to deport, or whether we're not being tough enough on crime, whether we still haven't been able to stop the boats. So the Home Office still isn't actually fit for purpose, it seems to me. But as a department that has actually tried to toughen up some of the legislation, Shabana Mahmood does seem to court more praise as a minister from other political parties and quarters than most others.
What is your experience of when you were advising in government, and obviously the government didn't budge on anything until Rowley had given it the thumbs up? Which department is the one you'd imagine that a new wannabe minister would... What's the delicious portfolio to have?
So, I mean...
Because I always thought, can I just sort of add this caveat, that I always thought if I was, you know, an MP and the Prime Minister's putting the thing together, it's clearly not based on specific expertise, and I don't know why, but it isn't. If I got called in, I'd be going... it'd be a mantra in my head, give me culture. I want culture. I want all the free football matches, every theatre show, anything you like, I'm there. Every gig at Wembley, I'm there. I take the job seriously, obviously.
Yes.
And if I turned up and the Prime Minister went, agriculture, I'd think, seriously? Flick, you want me to talk about broccoli for the next 5 years? So what's the sexy brief?
Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, actually. The Department of Culture, Media, Sport was always seen as the Department of Fun because of the sectors and the creative industries that you always, and the perks of that particular job, get to see,
of course,
on a work-based capacity, to engage with the industry and see what kind of performances the creative industries and arts can put on, or the sports sector, versus going to, as you say, going to maybe some factories, or where you have to wear a hairnet and a high vis.
Might not
be as glam.
Right, yeah. Minister, we're going to show you the new tractor range today. Fantastic.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there were some Tory MPs that quite like the tractor.
We remember that.
Who would have found
well,
that one particularly exciting brief? But in terms of other departments that are people will be, I think, trying to make a case to be in the Treasury, because the Treasury is the most powerful department. That's the one that gives you the cash to spend. That's the one that can also court some of these other sectors if they want to. If you want to get something done, if you want to be able to satisfy your industries or the groups of people that you're supposed to be looking after as a minister, then you've got to get the sign-off from the Treasury. So the Treasury is always a hot topic. And, of course, the Foreign Office, if you like a trip or two, although slightly less glamorous, because I think the Foreign Office will just be dispatching you to more sort of developing countries. So if you're into development, that's fine. But you might not get all of the glam that the Foreign Office used to provide, but still good for a trip.
I think the Home Office is probably quite a good... full of hassle and jip on a daily basis. You're looking after so much in that department. And, of course, the trouble with all of those jobs, it doesn't matter whether you specifically agree or disagree, you've got to go out and sell it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the trouble with the Home Office, it's a very secretive, I think, department. That's what I think we found out.
That's why I like it.
Yes, yeah. But I think...
Keep my powder dry, Charlie.
But there is a sort of... I think ministers feel as though that there isn't the level of support that they get from the department. So civil servants that are working on these policies day in, day out, they're not, I think, as forthcoming with information.
Right.
I think it's very much right, there's a problem here, let's fix it as best we can before we even tell the ministers or their staff or their team, until more often than not, it becomes too late. And we've seen loads of examples of that, whether it's Windrush, whether it's the numbers of people that were coming in for the Homes for Ukraine scheme. That was an absolute nightmare, something that was a good policy of allowing people to come into the country. The Home Office thought that they were sort of in control of that, but they weren't able to tell us the numbers of applications of people who'd applied, how many people actually been granted on a day-to-day basis. So they present themselves as a big office of state and a great office of state, but I think it's more difficult to work in that department than I think some people might think.
I'm only grinning, Charlie, because Mark in Selby says, "Morning, boys. Another hot night. Any tips on how to keep cool? Let's get this party started," he says. Mark, that's brilliant. Yes.
Well, it was an incredibly hot night last night, I felt.
Well, it was indeed. Here we go. Did you see, those ads? The BBC, of all people, have decided it's time to do a bit of work in the newsroom. So they've investigated fake fans. I don't mean people who pretend they like Charlie Rowley, but they don't really. I'm talking about those things you see on YouTube where they say 2 NASA scientists, when they left the laboratory, invented a new air conditioning unit. You've seen those?
No.
Have you not seen? Where have you been? You probably have a premium account where you don't get the ads.
I've been in HMS or HMO, Doncaster or whatever it is, performing to the lags.
Down there on the wing. Yes, so these ads, they've appeared for years, and it's always, it goes in 2 ways. It either says, Dean Smithers, a university student from Ohio, was having none of it when his professor told him that this can't be done. So he's invented a new heater or an aircon unit, or it's 2 former NASA scientists that have invented it. It is not any of those things, it's just a fan. But they flogged them for about 90, 100 quid. It's kind of like the El Cheapo fan that would cost you 3 quid.
Right.
So this is a kind of an investigation into all of that. So when Mark says, how do you keep cool? I buy fans from YouTube.
Right.
That's...
Have you purchased one of these?
No, of course I have. I kept looking at them thinking, are this not... Do Ofcom not have some kind of say over the Advertising Standards Authority have some kind of say over online stuff? Because these are properly made ads. I mean, arguably AI generated, but they talk about a heater or a cooler that can cool down a 37 square metre room by 17 Celsius in minutes.
Well, we could do with that in here.
Well, we could certainly do with it in here, yes, where they, for some reason, it's eluded the greatest engineers. So none of these things are true. So when it comes to keeping warm, and of course the answer, by the way, because we investigated this, my other half bought one of those air coolers. An air cooler, as opposed to air conditioning, is just a fan. But you can put water into the base of it and it will just give you cooler air from the fan. So you can put ice water in a kind of bit at the bottom, and then the fan, the air that blows out is just colder. But you can, the only way you can get true cooling down experience in a room is air conditioning. There's nothing else.
No.
Or open a window.
Yeah. Yes. Fascinating.
There is that.
Well, I was worried for a second that you were going to say that you fell for this sort of ploy of this.
No,
these fans.
I was going to appear on Watchdog or something.
Well, I was going to say, there goes your job at the Home Office. If you fall for that kind of ad, then, I don't think we'll be putting you in charge of immigration, sort of, applications.
Yeah, this man's got terrible judgment, it turns out.
In fact, that probably qualifies you for the role.
I was about to say, yeah, that might make me the best Home Secretary we ever had. We're taking your calls and comments. You can voice notice 0344 499 1000. It is now certain that Andy Burnham will be the next Prime Minister within probably 10 days from as we sit here now. Your assessment, your thoughts, your fears, your excitement on PM Andy Burnham appearing in Downing Street in 10 days' time. 0344 499 1000. That and any of the other subjects we've touched upon, lines are open. This is Talk.
Labour, interestingly, saying they're considering an emergency law to deport that grooming gang leader. This is Habib Ahmed, who served 14 years of his 22-year sentence for 30 child rape cases. He got less than 6 months. Basically, if you're going to be a child rapist, you know what, you may as well rape 40 instead of 1, because the sentence is basically the same. I mean, we're literally incentivising child-sodding rapists.
UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, morning, 6:20. Rachel says, good grief, Burnham's first speech. And he starts banging on about Gaza and Israel. Trump's going to just love this one, isn't he? He did say, didn't he, made a statement yesterday saying Labour got it wrong. Now, I'm assuming he's talking about Starmer's first comments, which were very generous to Israel. I think that would be fair to put it that way. What does this mean for Burnham and his relationship with that narrative of, you know, we are very much pro-Israel, and that's our stalwart position?
Well, it's interesting that is one of the first things that he said, you know, assuming, you know, office, as we talked about, you know, he is going to be the next Prime Minister, and that's one of the first things that he wants to sort of correct, which I find extraordinary when there is still a war going on with Iran, with the US, and so you've got to get on top of all the international problems that the country faces on defence, on security, on foreign affairs. So to come in just before, unless it's just a nod to his backbenchers, because, you know, there are more Labour MPs and more backbenchers and activists within the Labour Party that are more pro-Palestine and compared to
it's that, isn't it? It's that curious thing where, you know, Labour backbenchers for some reason instinctively gravitate towards a sort of medieval death cult, as distinct from a first world democracy. It's just in their blood, isn't it? Who should we go with? Do we side with these people who are great allies, where we have pretty much the same standards culturally and otherwise, or do we go with these people over here that would like to blow us into smithereens and hate everything we stand for, and we can just pretend we really like them?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a bizarre position.
But it's also odd because actually the one thing that you could, and, you know, I wouldn't say this was necessarily scraping the barrel, but you have to scrape the barrel, I think, to find some of the good things that Kier Starmer has actually achieved. But one of the things that you can give him credit for, I think many people would argue and agree with, is that he got rid of, to an extent, anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. It was riddled under Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes.
They were having investigations left, right and centre, you know, expelling people from the party because of anti-Semitism. So Kier Starmer made a huge gesture, I think, to people of Israel and people of Jewish faith within the Labour Party to say, no, this is a party for everybody. I've got rid of all of those people that were expressing anti-Semitic views. And so for then Burnham to sort of come in and then sort of not undo that work, but sort of then say, right, that's all very well, Kier, but I'm actually very much pro the other side.
But is he just starting early on this thing of, right, I've got to... The left wing of the party is, for him, the important bit, because the rest of the party will just follow me naturally anyway, because I'm the leader. But the left wing, I need to keep in order. Also, those Green Party members that have had a flirtation with Zach Polanski. And when we keep talking about the weirdness of this fella called Count Binface, which is a bit bizarre, a bit funny, you know, it's just some amusement in there. We can have a giggle over it. But all the time, we have a real-life guy called Zach Polanski. I mean, it's just a joke. It's almost... In fact, it's kind of got to... It's not even funny that this Polanski guy that almost came out of nowhere has the charisma of a breeze block and badly needs a dentist, but that's another story. You think, how is this maniac a leader of a party, and how are people going, yeah, Zach's like the sort of left-wing equivalent of Nigel? Well, he's not really, is he? I mean, you know, whether you love or hate Nigel Farage, we would all agree he's a good orator, he's a speaker, he's fluent, he's passionate. Polanski's none of that stuff. He's kind of a bloke that wanted to be an actor, and he's sort of cosplaying a party leader.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And what, you know, you're right. Whatever you think about Nigel Farage, you can't fault him for wanting to maybe stand up for the country and to reform our institutions to make sure that they're actually working. Whereas Zach Polanski seems to want to tear the whole place apart and, you know, offer unlimited services and public services to immigrants, you know, that come in. You know, anybody that crosses that small channel, crosses the channel in a small boat, has to be you know, seeking refuge, and very unfortunate, poor unfortunate soul that we must be, you know, looking after. Well, that's not, you know, who wants to legalise, you know, Class A hard drugs?
Yes.
You know,
wants to legalise Class A drugs and criminalise being a landlord.
Yes, yes.
So it'd be illegal to rent out your bedroom, but if you want to go on the smack, it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Get off your face, kids. It's brilliant. Go on, give it to your kids. Nobody cares. Get everybody completely off their trolley, but whatever you do, do not rent out that spare room.
No,
evil.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, the man is. I think people are soon finding out what Zach Polanski really stands for and what he can't be able to deliver.
But Burnham needs that group
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, if you've got someone who is, obviously not Kier Starmer, but is Andy Burnham, who is a better communicator than the Prime Minister, you're absolutely right. Those Labour-supporting members or activists who have sort of danced with Zach Plansky, probably on, who knows, at the club. On the wing. On the wing. They might be tempted to come back. I'm sure they will come back to Burnham, which will be a boost to him, which then poses the question whether Burnham feels that actually he would be in a position to call an early general election.
Yeah, you see. I think they're considering all of these things. But, he's surrounded by astute political operators like Louise Haigh.
Yes, who, again, yes, it was a massive gaffe, I thought, yesterday or the day before, where she has now openly admitted that they've been plotting and planning to get Burnham into to number 10 for over a year. This is extraordinary. The Labour government haven't only been in for 2 years, so, a lot of planning has gone into this, and which unravels itself. You think to yourself, right, so Burnham was never really part of the team, was never really interested in this Labour government being a success story.
No.
He's been doing everything he can from Manchester to destabilise.
I want that job.
Exactly.
Yeah, this isn't about, for country and I'm fight for the... No, I want that job.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting.
Absolutely.
That belief, I'm going to build my CV. We'll get that Josh fella, he wasn't that good anyway, kick him out. We'll tell him to resign. We'll give him a nice little job as an advisor at number 10 or something. We'll be surrounded by the Louises and the Joshes of this world as our greatest advisors. I want that job. And it's a curious position, isn't it? And I'll do anything to get that job.
Yeah, and you think to yourself, well, hold on, this is a guy that's now, as well as talking about Palestine as he did yesterday, he sent out, his team have sent out an email to sort of say that how he's going to be much more engaged with backbenchers, but how voting is important. He's going to be commanding discipline and loyalty from everybody, yet when he's been displaying the most disloyal attributes of an MP and a leader by unsettling and destabilising and effectively ousting the current Prime Minister.
Jane says, just put my TV on. What a lovely surprise. My two favourite boys. You including Charlie in that, I'm assuming. Yes.
What is she watching?
Country File.
Yes.
I no way agree with putting a PM in when no one voted for them. I now will never vote again. Jane has drawn a line under this democracy thing. She's having none of it. I was hoping MPs would grow up and play nice, but how wrong am I? Jane, they are all nutters in that place, I'm telling you. There are some exceptions, of course, good MPs. This is some very sad news, as we report now that Anne Widdecombe, the former MP, MEP, and a regular contributor to us here on Talk, has died at the age of 78. Anne was a Conservative MP for Maidstone, 23 years in that job, which is when I first got to know her. She was also Prisons Minister under John Major between 95 and 97. And she appeared quite literally just 48 hours ago here on Talk. Here she is speaking with Mark Dolan on Wednesday.
I've got very little trust left now in parliamentary processes. And if you look at this government, which has a majority on that committee, if you look at this government, look at the way that it's reacted when it's felt vulnerable, changes to political donations, cancelling local elections, we all remember that, going for votes at 16, loosening the voter ID requirements, you just name it. I mean, they react in such a way that is geared all around self-preservation now. Nigel is challenging that establishment, and he's called this the establishment versus the people, and I think that just about sums it up. And I'm delighted that he's taken this, because the attitude previously of politicians was that you just had to endure it. You gritted your teeth, and if you were being subject to fame after fame after fame and it wouldn't go away, you just carried on until your position became untenable. He's taking, and I drew the analogy with policy decisions earlier, he has taken this decision because he wants an end one way or the other. And he's right to do this. They're going to lack credibility if there's a by-election and a huge majority for Nigel. There's going to be a great lack of credibility if he's still hounded and pursued.
Anne Widdecombe speaking just 48 hours ago. And, of course, Anne went on to become a member of Reform UK. We are speaking to Richard Tice in about 15 minutes on this, but she was an interesting figure. She was a Kent MP, so I lived in Kent, so I was very familiar with her before she sort of rose into the Home Office, and then found herself in a sort of a bit of a battle with Michael Howard when he was Home Secretary. I don't think they always saw eye to eye. And then when I worked in radio as a sort of very wet behind the ears kind of character, I would end up having to interview Anne Widdecombe, and I thought, oh my God, she's terrifying, this woman, and she turned out to be the nicest person, and has always spoken to us here on Talk on a regular basis up to 48 hours ago, but sadly died aged 78.
Yeah, it's incredibly sad because I was here on Wednesday and just watching that interview with her just in the back office there, and she was still as formidable as she always has been and continued to be, and she was always still up to date with what was going on. She was still a formidable debater. She was here. She would be doing other channels and other debate programmes. And I would. It was only a few weeks ago that I saw her and we chatted because we were crossing over just in a green room together. And she was, she seemed still very passionate about what she believes in, and takes no prisoners in her debate, but was someone who politics is missing, and politics is missed for a long time. A conviction politician, and someone who, as you say, she was very tough and had a persona of being tough, and referenced Michael Howard. There's something of the knight about him. I think
that's
he referred
right.
to him
Yeah,
as
that was
a sort of Dracula figure during the 2005 general election, I think it was, and sort of destabilised his leadership there. But then went on to be a huge hit on things like Strictly Come Dancing, and we saw a whole other side.
Yeah, she did Strictly, and she managed to kind of turn that around. She did, I think, a couple of pantomimes as well, latterly, after she'd sort of quit from politics and then came back. Interesting, they never put her in the House of Lords, and she would have loved to have been in the House of Lords. Politics was in her blood. It's what got her out of bed in the morning. It's how she rolled. It's everything she thought about. She would have been the perfect contender in the House of Lords. And I think it would have been David Cameron that could have facilitated that. And I'm sure she said somewhere that it just, for some reason, he didn't want to. Whether she would have been an agitator to his administration, I don't know, but never happened.
Never happened, but she did, obviously.
The House of Lords was built for Anne Widdecombe.
Oh, totally. And, whether you agreed with her or not, and, that's the thing. The Lords is a particular, I think, place where it should have a lot more people who know a lot more about politics, but also a lot more about everything else in this country, from getting up in the morning and like listeners of this show who are doing the hard graft. That should be a chamber for people who've got all kinds of experiences. And if they'd put Nigel Farage in the Lords, to be perfectly honest with you as well, even though if Cameron didn't see eye to eye with the man, he might not have gone on to create the Brexit Party, then Reform UK.
That's true.
All of this might have been curtailed. But she did end up standing again, didn't she, as an MEP for the Brexit Party?
She did.
So she was in Brussels again.
She did. I was with her in Brussels on the last day that we were members of the EU. We had a little glass of wine in the kind of sort of foyer area, and I said to her, "You're going to miss this." She went, "Of course I'm not," because she was there as the Brexit Party were. It was almost a rebellion within. They weren't there as a party to support the great institutions of the EU. We will talk more about Anne Widdecombe. Sadly died aged 78. I'm sorry, we're going to sadly go down this route again, I'm afraid, about keeping cool, it seems. When Rowley and Collins are in town, there's only one subject. Neil says, you see, what I love about this job is the way different people's minds work and the imagery we create. And radio is, they used to say, didn't they, it always sounded rather... I hate it when people... When I first started working in radio, I remember some fella coming up to me who looked like he was about 100, and he was probably 38 or something, saying, "The thing with radio, young man, it's theatre of the mind." And I remember thinking, what did he get in the bin? Theatre of the mind? No, I'm just here to have a laugh, mate. I just wanted to do some fun stuff. But I know what he meant, looking back on it. You can create imagery, and that's what I like. And Neil in Stoke-on-Trent says, "Morning, Ian and Charlie. To say I love them. This just sounds like a Viz letter. To save the cost on air conditioning, straight away you know you're onto something here. Just put a couple of bottles of water in the freezer and then place them in front of an ordinary fan. But this is the best advice. Don't forget to turn the fan on. Oh. Yes, Neil, we will try not to forget that, because that would be a complete waste of everybody's time, wouldn't it?
It would, but I also... my physics might not be any good at all.
I can imagine it was terrible.
But I can't see how just putting a couple of cold bottles in front of a fan and turning the fan on is going to help in the slightest bit. You're probably just going to heat up the bottles, aren't you, from this fan, if it's sort of... But I think...
Well, no, you are blowing colder air around the room, aren't you?
No. You're not. How could you be? I mean, I've got visions of two water bottles, like, you know... I don't know why I'm holding... I mean,
what are you doing there, young man? Arrest this man! Well, surely it'd be like a 2-litre bottle of water that you'd buy in the supermarket. Yeah.
Yes.
That frozen. 2 of those frozen. Mm. So you put them in the freezer. They're free. Therefore, you understand the concept of frozen. I don't really need to explain that. There's a freezer. Here's some peas. Put them in there. They will come out frozen. So, yeah, here's what I made earlier. So, 2 frozen bottles of water, you put them in, you know, a fan with a bladed fan. Mm. You put the bottles... I can't believe we're talking about this. You put the bottles in front of the fan. Mm.
I'm listening. I'm with you so far, yes.
You turn the fan on, as Neil...
As per the advice from Neil. The instruction.
You put the fan on, and it blows the... I mean, there will be some people listening thinking, why is this even funny? You're correct, we don't know why it's... So it blows the air, and it just hits the solidity of the water, i.e. frozen water, and makes it a little cooler. I don't think it would make a dramatic change to temperature, but I would imagine if you scientifically measured on the other side of the frozen bottles, the air coming towards you would be slightly colder than without the bottles. You're refuting this.
I will consider trying this later on, but I would probably just actually drink some of the water, or use some of the frozen water to cool down. You know,
you can have another bottle for that, Charlie. Just enjoy the innovation.
Well, yes, I'll try.
You don't have to look at a bottle of frozen water and go drink or fan as if it's some kind of weird contest.
I'll consider trying it, and I'll report back.
I think it might make a small difference.
A small difference, but a lot of effort to... I mean, you'd have to keep replacing the bottles, wouldn't you? Because they will melt quite quickly, I would have thought. You know, the ice in the bottles the ice that turns to water. Does that how it...
What you say quite quickly, I mean, it's not a heater you're putting it in front of, is it?
No, but the room temperature is still...
It's not a radiator.
But the temperature is so high, you know, it's still warm.
The temperature of the room, yes. I know, I get it. OK, we'll explore this. Welcome to the world of physics with Ian and Charlie on a Friday morning. More coming up, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed talk. 0344 499 1000. Lots of nice comments coming in about Anne Widdecombe as well. Sadly, we brought you that news about 10 minutes ago that Anne Widdecombe has died at the age of 78. Now, Anne was a real regular with us here on Talk, and there was no suggestion, literally 2 days ago, that she was in any way ill. Certainly nothing visually that gave us a clue she was anything other than the usual bumptious and opinionated Anne Widdecombe. But we will be talking to various people who worked alongside Anne. She was a great brain as well, a great political brain, and she never really wavered from her views. And I think she was only... I think Spitting Image probably had a field day with Anne Widdecombe. Because she wasn't glamorous and she was quite school mistressy in that sense, and you know she didn't worry about the fact that her hair might look like she just walked out of a tunnel. She didn't care about that stuff. She cared about the politics, but that opened her up to a certain amount of kind of ridicule in a way. She was a very lovely, dear lady.
Oh no, she absolutely was, and she wasn't sort of, despite how she appeared, as you say, and she still had this sort of presence and maintaining herself as someone of tradition and, you know, as you say, having those long-held views. But she did embrace, you know, anything that sort of was thrown her way. I mean, I know we've talked a little bit about her being on Strictly Come Dancing, but I remember, I think she was also on Celebrity Big Brother, which really exposes you, I think, you know,
yes.
You know, where you're obviously being filmed day in, day out in a house full of, you know, 10, 12 other sort of so-called celebrities or whatever it was at the time, and she was sort of there to, I think, inform and educate the public to get to so her views can be challenged, so she can challenge other people's views. And she wasn't, you know, she wasn't playing up to the wokery that you might have expected from some of these reality TV shows now, where you've got to be have a certain view, or you've got to be the complete extreme or whatever. She was able to have conversations with anyone from all walks of life and have a completely different opinion, but just say it's okay to disagree, but we'll have two different views, but we'll respect each other and move on.
Indeed. It's, I mean, a great life in politics and a great brain around the world of politics. Lots of tributes coming through. This from Michelle, who says, Ian and Charlie, great to see you both this morning. You should have your own show together. Such a time. Frankly, it's a ridiculous suggestion, Michelle, that I would work with Charlie more than the occasional hour that we currently do. I feel rather often need to lay down afterwards. Michelle says, R.I.P. Anne Widdecombe. I watched it on Mark's show just 48 hours ago. So sad. It is sad when something rather sort of sudden just happens. And yes, she was 78, but, you know, 78 is... that doesn't feel that old these days, you know. And she was, you know, active in terms of her appearances on TV and radio, and still continue to retain her very forthright and honest views. Let's have a listen to Anne appearing with Mark Dolan just 2 days ago.
Now, this is a very decisive man. I mean, this is the man who, for years and years and years, you know, we heard from successive governments, so you can't do anything about ECHR, we've just got to obey their judgments. And Nigel said, well, no, actually, we don't. Now, that is the sort of decision-taking that is needed in the leader of the country. And he has now taken a very similar attitude in this personal circumstance. And he has said, you know, I don't have to put up with all this hounding and harassment for as long as, you know, the establishment or the press fancy it. I can actually take matters into my own hands now. And that is what he's done. And I think that's what makes Nigel Farage so different.
Anne Widdecombe. Let's speak with Richard Tice, Deputy Leader at Reform UK, who worked alongside Anne. Morning to you, Richard. And, of course, you know, Anne did, in the later years of her life, cross the floor, as it were, from a Conservative to a Reform UK supporter. What a sad day.
It's desperately sad. I'm so shocked, Ian, because I spoke to Anne just at length on Monday about a variety of issues, was in text contact with her on Tuesday. She was a true legend, from a long career in the House of Commons for some 23 years, between 87 and 2010. And then, of course, she was a legend on the media. I mean, she was a dancer extraordinaire on Celebrity Come Dancing. Bruce Forsyth, I think, was genuinely concerned that she might usurp him. So fine was she with Anton de Beck, and she was on multiple pantos, and she was adored by the nation. Whether you liked her politics or not, what people loved was her conviction, her passion, and she had a clear view, and people like that. It's a sense of leadership. And I first got to know her back in 2019 when she, as you say, crossed the floor from the Conservatives to what was then the Brexit Party. She was elected a member of the European Parliament to get out of Europe, and she was an absolute legend on these big rallies we had. I mean, she was short in height, but she was a colossus in her ability to speak to a crowd, and she would have thousands of people in adoration of her. She would strut around the stage, and she just told it as she saw it, and there was no nonsense whatsoever. And she was a brilliant orator, but also working sort of closely with her in meetings and things. You know, you'd have a debate, you'd have a discussion, you wouldn't always agree, but she would put her view forward. Then you'd get to a decision within a meeting, and then with that sense of collective responsibility, she would go out and sell what the decision was, come what may, and she would sell it hard and forcefully. And she was so loyal to Nigel and I over these last 7 years. You know, I would never forget that, and be forever grateful. Wide, sage counsel, and an absolute workaholic as well. I mean, she'd think nothing of going the length and breadth of the country if we wanted her to appear at a rally or something. Think nothing at all. It was remarkable, and just that sort of passion for debate, for current affairs, to make a difference. Yep. Then at the end of the day, I must reveal, if I'm allowed to, that you know, when we're tired, we reach for a glass of water and might just blend a little bit of water with a little bit of whiskey and thoroughly enjoy it. And that was a sort of special part of the way that she would end a long day travelling and speaking.
Absolutely right. And as you mentioned, Richard, one of those sort of rare MPs, and you know, I knew her obviously through this job, and over the years, I think she was possibly one of the first, when I first went into journalism, one of the first MPs I ever interviewed. Now, I would have been terrified of her at the time. It was only latterly where you realise, actually, this is a really nice person. She's very decent. But what she did have was utter conviction. She didn't waver to whatever the crowd were asking for. She didn't move and modify her opinions because they might be more popular over there or get her a greater audience over here. She stuck with what she believed. She really was a conviction politician.
Absolutely, and that experience, 23 years, she was very experienced in the world of justice and prisons, law and order, and literally she was just this week talking about her helping train our parliamentary candidates towards the next general election, you know, how she could use that experience. And, you know, she didn't suffer fools at all, but she always did it in a sort of a very charming way. And even when people disagreed with her, they sort of they semi-loved her and semi-respected her for it. It was a remarkable character and talent, which I know it's an old cliche, but I'm not sure they make them like Anne Widdecombe anymore. I'm really not. I mean, my late mother used to adore her.
Yes.
In Conservative circles, she adored her alongside you know, other great figures in the then Conservative Party.
Listen, Richard, great to get your tribute. Thank you. Very heartfelt stuff from Richard Tice, who, of course, knew Anne very well. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, worked alongside Anne Widdecombe because she did, of course, cross over to become a Brexit MEP, and then on to becoming a member of Reform UK. That news that Anne Widdecombe has died aged 78. Charlie Rowley is with us in the studio. This comes in from Lord Damon, who says, "Morning, Damon from Wigan. The world is a sad place today. The world needs more Anne Widdecombe's, and if there was, then Britain wouldn't be in the mess that it currently is." Adrian in Buckhurst Hill says, "Charlie obviously has forgotten his physics lessons." You ready for this, Charlie?
Oh, yes.
And the latent energy costs of melting ice. Make sure you place the bottles on a tea towel to collect the melt-water condensation.
Well, yes. Now we know.
If anybody's just tuned in at that point, they'll go, "What the hell is he talking about?" This is back to our favourite subject of how to keep cool in hot weather. So this was about putting ice bottles in front of a fan.
See, I would, but I think I naturally would have done that anyway. I would have put a tea towel down because obviously the bottles are going to, well, as the ice melts,
the condensation of the bottle.
Exactly, on the outside of the bottle. That would, but I still can't quite get my head around how blowing air at a frozen bottle, is going to somehow reduce the temperature significantly in the room. But there you go.
Pat says, Ian, lovely Charlie, don't mock the bottles of water in front of a fan until you've tried it.
Oh, right.
It works. Army have been doing it for years, says Pat.
Who?
The Army.
Oh, have they? Oh, right.
Really? Do they go out there with bazookas and Sherman tanks and go, "Bring out the frozen water, boys"?
And fans. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 litre frozen H2O coming your way.
Well, I stand corrected. I will give it a try. I mean, I'm being encouraged. I'll give it a go because it was incredibly hot last night. And,
it was. Margaret in Birmingham says, "Don't forget the fan gives off heat, so eventually the plastic bottles will melt." Well, the bottles won't melt, will they? The stuff. Well, I mean, they might do, but.
Yeah, well, yes, you'd have to be there sometime, I think. And
weeks, I would imagine. For the bottle to melt in front of a basic fan.
Yes. No, I think yes, the ice would melt. I think is maybe what they mean, but who knows?
OK, let's get a voice note. This comes from Ross. Morning, Ross.
Good morning, Ian. Great show as always. It's Rossi from Manchester. Hope you're well this morning. Yeah, not going to lie, mate. Just switched on to hear about bottles of water and fans. No idea what the hell we're going on about, but you know what? Some topics, they've gone down in my estimations this morning, mate. And rest in peace to Anne Widdecombe as well. Great guest she was always when she was on your shows and stuff. So all the best and happy Friday, guys. Keep up the good work.
Happy Friday, Ross. Thank you, mate, for that. The other subject we didn't get into, but we mentioned it at the beginning. The prison that invited a drag artist to entertain sex offenders attending an LGBT... I mean, everything about this sentence tells you what is wrong with this country. The prison that invited a drag artist to entertain sex offenders attending an LGBT sports day. This was the walkaway outside the sort of segregation unit at the prison in Doncaster, was decked out in coloured plastic sheets. Reflecting the colours of the LGBT flag for the event. It's understood the sports day was organised by jail bosses to recognise diversity within the prison, which houses more than 1,000 inmates. I don't know why you have to give a toss about diversity in the prison. It's a prison, for God's sake. I don't know why you're messing around. I mean, the sports day thing, you know, get out on the field and, you know, run a race if you want to. The LGBT sports day. And then you invite, I don't know who the drag queen was, the mighty Gisabella turns up on C Wing, you know. She's in the house, boys, you know, to entertain us. I mean, what's that got to do? Really?
It is extraordinary. I mean, I'm still falling about laughing inside because it's such a. But if it is a serious in one part. Well, it is a serious subject because regardless of the diversity of the prison, regardless of whether the inmates there are of an LGBT background or not, you know, if some of them are sex offenders, these are highly, you know, highly classified, I would say, prisoners. These are inmates. These are people where they are doing the time for some pretty terrible crime. They should not be having, I would argue, any kind of fun, if you could put it, if that's what this day was, for those people. You know, a prison is also a place of punishment, as well as taking away the liberties that you've obviously done for somebody else. So I don't see.
I'd have to read you this, because this is something that's crossed my mind as well, and Mark in Croydon has put it brilliantly. He says, "Morning both. Is there nothing a drag queen can't do? Read stories to kids at school, sports days for prisoners, the Swiss Army knife of entertainers." What is it about? You know, we're sitting there, we don't know what to do. Drag queen, that's it. So when drag queen's a fairly sort of parochial, very specific area of sort of entertainment and cabaret. There's big tradition with it, whether it's sort of the dame role in a pantomime, whether it's some kind of sort of late-night cabaret show. It's a proud history to that art. But this idea that suddenly somebody said, like, oh, we need somebody to read the 5-year-olds a story. Oh, I know. What about the drag queen? You know, the one that does all the double entendres. Yeah, get them down there. And I don't understand why that would have been a go-to choice. I don't understand why the prison people would have gone, we need a drag queen.
Well, they're clearly very versatile.
Clearly.
But they are, you're absolutely right. This is probably diversity gone mad, where someone at the prison, the governor or has said, right, we need to tick these boxes for diversity. I know, we've got a sports day coming up. Let's go drag.
Let's go drag. More coming. Charlie, thank you. Charlie is going outside to fill up his bottle. Stick it in the freezer. We'll bring you the results next time we meet. This is Talk.
The thing that most makes me angry about Kier Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
It's happened before, but it is nonetheless still rather extraordinary that somebody who was only elected or officially sworn in as an MP less than 24 hours ago, in 3 weeks' time, is going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
Look, the battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Kier Starmer. Kier Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He's going to want a big reward. But, you know, he is, you know, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. You know, she was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome. Ian Collins here on Talk Breakfast. It is Friday, July the 10th. We pretty much welcome the new Prime Minister, by the way. Andy Burnham is the only candidate to be backed by the vast majority of MPs. July 20th, he's got the big gig. Your thoughts on PM Andy Burnham? How's it making you feel this morning, knowing that little... It was inevitable, we knew that much, but your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Apparently David Miliband, former high-profile front bencher, of course, former Foreign Secretary, professional grinner, very happy about it back in Andy Burnham, or is he on manoeuvres? Elsewhere, Kemi Badenoch is purging her party of net zero fanboys. Did you see this? She wants would-be MPs who worship at the altar of climate change gone. Back to that election, one of Labour's biggest donors has pledged to fund Count Binface in his Clacton by-election battle with Nigel Farage. The green energy tycoon Dale Vince is ready to splash the cash. We'll be speaking to Nigel Farage a little later. And the prison that invited a drag artist to entertain sex offenders for an LGBT sports day. How do we... Are we the only country that ties ourselves up in these kind of curious, bizarre, box-ticking knots that nobody ever asked for, but somebody somewhere decided to suggest? I can't get my head around any of this. And on a very sad note, politician and friend of this programme, Anne Widdecombe, has died aged 78. She last appeared just 2 days ago with us, looking and sounding in fine form. We're paying our tributes to Anne as well this morning. This one in from Pauline, who says Anne will be a massive loss to the world of politics. She was a committed politician who believed in this country. We need more like her in the crazy world of politics. It's worth just having a little clip of Anne speaking in the EU Parliament. That was the last parliamentary platform she spoke from. She, by this stage, was a Brexit Party MEP. Here she is speaking over there in Brussels in 2020.
17.4 million people in the biggest democratic turnout in British history voted to leave. We ended up in the European elections as the single biggest party in this parliament. Why? Why did Boris Johnson get such a massive majority in the last election? Because his basic promise was get Brexit done.
Real passion from Anne Widdecombe. Let's speak with Sir John Redwood, former Conservative Cabinet Minister. John, always good to see you. Good morning. It is a sad day, quite unexpected it seems, but Anne Widdecombe was a figure in the world of politics. You would have known her well. Your thoughts today?
Indeed, it's been a sad week. Our troubles don't just come in single form, because, of course, we're all mourning Lord Mackay, who was a great reforming Conservative Lord Chancellor and such a wonderful man. enjoyed working with him a lot for Margaret Thatcher when they were putting through their great legal reforms. Now we've lost one of the great outspoken voices from the Conservative side of the spectrum. And many people remember the home truths that Anne Widdecombe delivered on Brexit and other issues. They will also remember just what a dedicated Catholic she became and how she took up all of the Catholic causes and delivered the messages.
Indeed, and that sort of passion and forthright nature is sadly missing when I look at some, and I know everybody, as we all get older, you look back and say it wasn't like it used to be back in the day, but I do really look at and feel a sense of dread and sadness when I look at some of the benches, some of the people sitting on those green benches, John, these days. And what we do know, just to bring us on to one of the other big stories of the day, is that at least 322 of those people on the Labour benches are backing Andy Burnham, which means that he's all but home now in terms of the big job as Prime Minister. In 10 days' time, Mr Starmer goes, enter Andy Burnham.
Well, indeed, and it shows just how many of them don't have principles or views, because they're signing up to a man who's flip-flopped all over the place and still won't make a statement to the nation or to them about what he wants to do. And I think it's dreadful that yet again we're being served up somebody who doesn't have a clear set of principles and views, who doesn't have a thought-out plan, and is going to be given the most powerful job in the country with 322 already signed up to him, whatever it might be. And why have they done it? Well, they've done it because he was able to win a by-election, because he was the way to get rid of an even more disliked Prime Minister. And they're mistaking that for being buy-in by the public to Burnham. And how can the public buy into Burnham when he flip-flops and won't give us a clear statement?
It is rather extraordinary when somebody else says it out loud, as you just did there, John, the mechanism and the way this happened. You know, the idea that we sort of facilitate somebody's CV by standing down the person that was literally voted in not even that long ago to make way for a man that, as far as I don't remember any great debates that Andy Burnham was the saviour of anything, frankly, not even the Labour Party. To me, it's a fairly ugly scene that unfolded in the way this has happened. It doesn't feel very democratic.
It's the very worst of modern politics, with people wanting to jump on a bandwagon without even asking whether it's got any wheels on it and where it's going. And we then hear these vacuous comments from Burnham based on polling to say, I'm only going to say things that are popular. Well, you can't do that as Prime Minister. You have to make real live decisions. You know, this sudden idea he's come up with, you're going to reindustrialise Britain. Well, 3 cheers for that. I've been arguing about how you do that for quite a few years. How's he going to do it? Oh, he's going to buy more British defence kit. Problem, Andy Burnham, we have to buy American kit because it has superior technology. Problem, Andy Burnham, we've even been buying foreign ships because they're half the price and they're delivered twice as quickly. There are really big problems that you have to resolve in defence procurement. You have to start with getting rid of the net zero idiocy. Why can't we make more weapons in Britain? It's not because people don't want to, it's because they're taxed to death, because they have to pay all these carbon taxes, because our steel is very expensive and is in a state of collapse. We are deindustrialising thanks to Burnham's party. We've seen so many factory closures in the last 2 years, accelerating the pace of the wrong policies under the Conservatives and doubling down on them. We need change, and that isn't going to come from Burnham.
And that's precisely the problem here, isn't it? That he's playing to... I mean, there we were talking about Anne Widdecombe, who had an idea that these were her politics. She didn't move from them. She was open to debate, but that she focused... When I look at Andy Burnham, he's not a philosophically driven politician. Nobody would ever have been able to guess what Burnhamism is. It just isn't really there. He's sort of playing to this gallery of Blairites, apparently, because he looks a little more lively than Kier Starmer, but simultaneously I noticed he put out a tweet yesterday, John, saying that Labour have got it horribly wrong on Israel. Obviously, that's a pop at Kier Starmer on his original position on Israel. So I would suggest that's Andy Burnham playing to the kind of the Corbyn element of his party and even the Greens.
Yeah, well, this is a man who was a loyal Blairite for a bit and then was a loyal Corbynista for a bit.
Yeah.
And now wants to drive soft left, veering on hard left, because he thinks that's where he will get some votes back. He's obviously most worried about the way the Greens were taking his vote. And so that's why he's redefined British foreign policy towards Israel in a few throwaway lines without taking advice from diplomats and thinking about why Britain is in the position it's been in under Starmer and under Cameron as Foreign Secretary for Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
It is so incompetent, it's so unprofessional. We need to be represented by someone who has some mental energy, who studies the issues before he sounds off, but who is driven by a belief that Britain can do so much better. This man doesn't get driven by that. He's driven by the belief that he can become Prime Minister and he can be universally popular, and I'm afraid there will be a rude awakening.
Yeah. Well, he nominated himself yesterday. Let's have a listen to this.
Strange thing to say, but I've just been in to nominate myself to be leader of the Labour Party. The nomination process has opened this morning, so glad to see some MPs going in. I'm still the only candidate in the race. We'll get the first indication about 7 p.m. tonight of the first number of MPs to sign up, but the thing will go on over the next few days, so it won't be the final word. But yeah, it's all starting to feel very real.
It's almost like some kind of grim reality show, John Redwood.
Well, indeed, and again, so unprofessional and not the leader of the team. When you have all those MPs who say they support you, they do at this stage, you would presumably choose the best one or two that are going to be top of the list to sign your nomination papers, and they would go on television and explain to the rest of us why they're backing him, because he's such a good idea. This was so self-serving, and I think it did him a lot of damage. He looks as if it's all about Burnham and it's not about us and the country.
We understand there's been some fairly gushing endorsement as well from David Miliband, former Labour cabinet minister, and that always sparks up the debate or the question as to whether he's on manoeuvres and thinking of coming back to domestic politics.
Well, it would be a dreadful look if he gives top jobs to the two Miliband brothers, and if we have Ed Miliband as Chancellor taxing us to death and trebling up on net zero, and if we have David Miliband as our leading diplomat, because he's not a particularly diplomatic man, it's not going to be good for the country. And I think the ladies of the Labour Party are going to be absolutely scandalised if the two other top jobs go to yet more men when they've been making a point that they're not properly represented.
Absolutely. Just on to other matters, we have a by-election coming up, of course, in Clacton, of which your party is not standing. Neither is Labour, Lib Dems and possibly the Greens, but it's going ahead anyway. Nigel Farage versus a bin seems to be the headline on this. We also understand that Dale Vince, the Green entrepreneur, is financing the bin. I mean, I don't even know what the right words are, John, to articulate the kind of bizarre state of British politics and where we're at, where we're debating a bin.
Well, it's a massive diversion, and I'm very cross about it, because at a point where Mr. Burnham is coming in with this acclaim and no known policies, all political focus ought to be on getting him into the House of Commons. He's now elected, but he doesn't ever seem to go there, and to get him cross-examined. And why don't they extend the Commons session for another week so the new Prime Minister can come to the Commons properly and make a full statement? Instead, we've got this massive diversion about a by-election that no sensible person wants. Nigel Farage says that he has done nothing wrong. The parliamentary inquiry goes on. He should just clear his name in that parliamentary inquiry. And now he's no longer an MP. He could set out a full statement of case as to why what he's done is perfectly reasonable and try and clear the matter up. You only need a by-election in Clacton if the findings are that he did do something wrong.
Does it, Mr. Farage, as you are well aware, John, and you know what it's like to be, you know, in the spotlight. He certainly had a lot of that. The heat is on. Do you have a sympathy with politicians who find themselves relentlessly the subject of headlines, of whatever the reason might be behind it? And it, you know, regardless of one's politics, it's fair to say that Mr. Farage has had a fair share of that.
Well, I have enormous sympathy with politicians who are falsely accused or dragged through the media on basis of misinterpretations and misunderstandings, and I had enough of that. But I don't have any sympathy for politicians who are crooks or who have lied about something very important. And so you have to make a distinction, and you only know towards the end, when you get to denouement, whether they were in the majority of politicians who are simply being attacked by their enemies for no good reason, or whether they're in that minority of politicians who have misbehaved and lied, in which case the system does need to weed them out.
John, always good to see you. Thank you for your time, sir. Great to have you on. Sir John Redwood, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, with us here on the programme. Thank you to him. This comes from, for some reason, whenever I appear to sit in this seat, it's always been when it's been hot. So the subject of keeping cool keeps coming up. It's always become a thing. We could do a whole Edinburgh show on this. I wish I'd seen this earlier when Charlie Rowley was in. Laney says, morning, it's Laney in Essex. Remember the 46-degree caravan? This was Laney that started off this whole snowball effect of discussing how to keep cool. Anyway, Laney says, I buckled and I bought air conditioning. Now Mad Ed doesn't want me to use it. He will have to prise this out of my cold, dead fingers. Great show. I tell you what, that will change your life. If it's the one where you stick the pipe out the window, even, I know it looks like you've got an elephant in your house from the outside. These things just work. They're quite pricey, but boy, do they work. I mean, it just changes everything. Absolute game changer. Thank you, Laney, for that. 0344 499 1000. On that issue of keeping cool, let's get a voice note from Rob. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Ian. Rob, on my way to work. You're on about how to keep cool. About 2 years ago, my wife bought one of those white plastic boxes about 8 or 9 inches square, where you put water in the bottom and it has a fan blowing over it, and you're supposed to put ice cubes in it, and it's supposed to be some revolutionary cooling system like aircon. It's the biggest load of crap going. I think it lasted about a day, 2 days in my bedroom, and then it got launched into the recycling bin. Absolute pile of crap. So, yeah, cheers.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. TalkSport have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, yes. Good morning, it's Ian Collins on Talk Breakfast. We're all about keeping cool today, and lots more to discuss. Let's get one here. This comes from Mark. Morning, Mark.
Right, morning.
I can't believe how stupid you guys are. If you put 2 frozen water bottles in front of a fan, you're going to be blocking the flow of the air, so you're not going to get any circulation of air in the room. You need to place them literally just behind the fan, so the fan will suck in the cold air and throw it out in front of you. God, great show, though.
That's not going to work at all, sticking them behind the fan. What's he talking about? The fan doesn't... It's not a suction unit from behind the fan, and you don't put them... You put them in front of the fan, so the fan has no choice but to blow air into a zone that is cold, OK? And therefore disperses the colder area of the air to the greater expanse of the air. Like we know what we're talking about. 0344 499 1000. Dan in Suffolk says, morning, chaps. Just want to say we've lost a titan with Anne Widdecombe. Remembered fondly, indeed. Enid says, morning, Ian and Charlie. Charlie is sadly gone. I say sadly. Not bothered, frankly. As it's so humid in this heat, the only thing that would cool you down from the frozen water bottles and the fan is the spray of the condensation blowing from said bottles. I mean, technically speaking, if you add... Is Rowley still there? Man, I just looked out, he's still here. You can't get rid, like a... I don't know what he is. He heard Laney, yes, I just look at him, there he is sitting in the newsroom, walking around, just meandering. He loves to meander and linger, does that one. We might get him back in a second as well. Let's get a word, a more sensible voice. Ben Habib, chairman of the Great British Pack, is with us. Morning to you, Ben.
Good morning, Ian.
Just give us a word, if you would, on Anne Widdecombe. The news we heard when we came into work, actually, that Anne had died at the age of 78. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to take away from her, regardless of their politics, the length of time that she was engaged in the political conversation and the passion with which she did it.
She was an extraordinary lady, Anne Widdecombe. A breed that sadly is literally dying in the United Kingdom. She combined her Christian stiff upper lip with a deep heart, with great care for other people. She was deeply principled. She wouldn't budge on her principles, but she would accommodate other people's weaknesses. She was an ardent unionist. She believed in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And when I was in the Brexit Party and then Reform UK, she was actually one of the few people who stood absolutely firmly alongside me in fighting the Northern Ireland Protocol. She's going to be very, very sadly missed by myself and I think any other people who came to know her. She was formidable. Yeah. And, you know, she represented the politician of old on whom you really, truly could rely. You know, when she said something, you knew she meant it. If she said she was going to do something, she'd do it. She was just a solid, good human being. And I'm very, very sorry to have heard that she's died. It's not a tragedy because she had a full life and a fantastic life, but it's a great loss to the country.
Absolutely right, and she was a regular, as you know, Ben, with us here. And it's just, I mean, the compare and contrast of the kind of politicians we have today. I'm looking at Andy Burnham, you know, fairly shameless, vacuous sort of character when it comes to political ideology or philosophy. He doesn't quite know where he's a Blairite, he's a Corbynite, and can his mate stand down so he can facilitate a seat for him so he can become the Prime Minister and build his CV. I mean, it's all shades of ugly. Couldn't be more different to somebody like Anne, who was slightly more old school ideologist who had her views, and whether people agreed or disagreed, she stuck with them and she would have argued them. And I don't see this from people like Burnham.
No, she was a conviction politician, which sadly is also rapidly disappearing from the United Kingdom. Yeah. You know, what you describe in Burnham is what I would say the vast majority of politicians are now, which are careerists. They'll pivot this way and that way, say whatever they need to say in order to curry favour with their base, to get through the next 24-hour news cycle and, you know, move on. Whereas she had a set of principles, and if you didn't like them, well, that's fine, but she would try and convince you that they were right, and it was up to you to, you know, follow or not follow.
Indeed. And when I look at the news now that we have, Burnham has the 322 Labour MPs, it's all but done, that he has the big job. And you think, this is... Look, I know it's our system, and our democracy is our democracy, and sometimes it doesn't always work to the way that we all enjoy or embrace, but it's our democracy and it's the way the system is. It doesn't stop us from just looking at this Burnham story and thinking, hang on, half an hour ago, this bloke was not even an MP.
I know.
And even when he became an MP, only 20,000 or thereabouts people voted for him. And in 10 days' time, he's going to be the Prime Minister.
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary that this can happen in our democracy, that an MP can stand aside, cost the Exchequer £250,000 to hold a by-election just because he wants Burnham to come into office so that Burnham can be anointed Prime Minister by the party. I appreciate we don't have a presidential system and that the party is at liberty to choose who it wishes to lead it. But this is not really correct, because when we vote in a general election, we do vote for the leader of a particular party. You know, we have them firmly in our minds as we vote. And people voted for Kier Starmer. And I think one of the things Burnham's going to find challenging, unless he calls a general election, of course, but one thing I think he's going to find challenging is not having a democratic mandate. It never works well for someone who's come in mid-term. No matter how good the party might think they are, the people of this country don't get behind them. We saw that repeatedly after Boris Johnson. Fine, Boris Johnson really mucked up, had to go, but none of the others who tried to come after him, Sunak, Liz Truss, and others had a go at trying to win the leadership. None of them really could get the support of the people. Liz Truss was out in 44 days. Sunak had an absolutely torrid time as Prime Minister, had to call a general election early, and then was, the Conservative Party was chucked out on its ear. And the democratic mandate is crucial to the foundations of our democracy and the authority that our government has in office. Without that democratic mandate, frankly, they can't really take decisions. And I think Burnham's going to find that to his great cost. I know there's been a bit of a Burnham bounce in the polls, but that's going to slide off very quickly, in my opinion.
In terms of our democracy, we are in a very strange place. So we have this curious position of Andy Burnham popping up. We then have another curious position in Clacton, where we've got a bloke who puts a bin on his head, who is apparently the only serious contender in a by-election. I mean, we were arrived in some sort of weird upside-down Alice in Wonderland world, Ben.
Well, we have. And I mean, again, without wishing to perhaps over-dwell on Anne would have been looking at this, Anne Widdecombe would have been looking at this and holding her head in her hand and thinking, how is it that the British political establishment has become a circus? How is it that we've got, a possible winner in Clacton who's got a bin on his head? And this is not the United Kingdom that we should be aspiring to have. We need to go back. We need to restore trust in politics. We need principles to be the yardstick by which politicians are guided, not by opportunistic moves, gimmicks, this, that, and the other. And of course, just as people will criticize Farage for, throwing a hissy fit, calling this by-election, whatever, one could equally criticize Count Binface for actually mocking British democracy. It's a choice between, two really bad things, I think, now in Clacton.
Yeah. Could the bin win, Ben?
I think there's a really good chance the bin could win. The turnout's going to be low. The turnout's going to be very low. For sure. I think Farage has said he's not even going to really campaign too hard in Clacton, if at all, which means that if Vince Dale gets behind Count Binface, as he said he has, and remember the spend on a by-election can be quite large, I think about £110,000. If he gets behind him, they can canvass right across the constituency. The anti-Farage vote will all come out in favour of Binface.
So Farage won't be able to take the bin out?
It's going to be
the best
difficult.
we could come up with, Ben.
It's not a great reflection on our democracy, what's taking place.
Well, we'll be speaking to Nigel Farage a little later. Listen, Ben, always good to see you. Thank you for coming on with us. Ben Habib, he is, of course, the chairman of the Great British Pack. Ben says It's a bit sinister, this. Ben says, I think you need to go back to school to say that a fan doesn't suck air behind it. What a fool. Ha, 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 ha. It is a bit weird when someone writes that, because you've physically got to write that. Right, OK, two things. What about fans? I'm not suggesting that if you have an open, you know, one of those open fans that sits in a wire kind of cage, that it will naturally be sucking air from the back. But the fan isn't dependent on sucking air from the back. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sealed fans that sit in a box where there is no back, open back. The fan is just, there's no reliance on the back. Fans that are attached to walls clearly don't sit there with any need for the air behind it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be attached to a wall, right? And if you look at your Dyson fan, if you put a cardboard sheet behind it, it would make no difference to what the Dyson fan does. Not recommended. How many fans are attached to walls? It's a very good point. But if you put it against a wall even, I mean, if it was dependent on the heat behind it, on the air behind it, you would say, do not put this fan near a wall. And you wouldn't be able to buy those little floor fans that, again, they blow out the cold air, but they are sealed at the back. So thank you, Ben, for that. And Wayne says, who needs a weather app? As soon as I see the Collins standing in, you know that the day carries a weather warning for being hot. Collins, the man who you can plan your barbecue around. Absolutely bang on. It's just a service we naturally provide here, Wayne. Very sad day for British politics, though, says Wayne. R.I.P. Anne, that amazing voice and dedication to a vision. Such is her standing in our lives. She is a voice you could never use on the mystery voice. Yeah, go within a second, wouldn't it? Everybody would know who that was. 0344 499 1000. Gurdeep says, good morning, Ian. Will this Count Binface be told to remove his mask? And will he declare the donations that he or she will receive from Dale Vince? I think it's kind of out. I don't know what the number is or the amount. Will people on the count be shouting, take it off? So, I would imagine that's inevitable, isn't it? It goes with the territory of being bin-face. I think he accepts that. Let's get a word on Andy Burnham. This comes from Sean. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Ian. Sean from Grimsby here. Now, I find it hard to get excited about Andy Burnham when we all know what's coming. More immigration, more trans nonsense, more tax rises, more money for benefits. It's the Labour way, mate. Great show.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It's 25 to 8. It is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense. Ian Collins in the hot seat this morning, and it is a hot seat as well. We, for some reason, whenever I'm in this particular slot, the weather is really hot, and we end up talking about heat. ways to cool down and general fannage-based activities. Charlie Rowley was our guest in the first hour. We said goodbye to him at 7, and like a bad penny, did he leave? Did he, Buffalo? He just hung around. Likes to linger, does our Charlie. He's back in with us.
I was listening intently outside. I was listening to all of the suggestions of how to keep cool.
Lady got back in touch.
I heard, yes. That sort of aroused my, my interest.
Yes.
And I sort of decided to stick around.
We are talking about fannage here. That is not a village in Devon, but general fannage for cooling down. We had this one, you see, so Ben thought he'd scuppered us with this idea that you need a fan, that a fan doesn't suck air behind it. A fan is not dependent on an airflow behind it in order to be a fan. That's just a fact, OK? It might technically, if it's in a room, it's going to clearly hoover up a bit of air, scientifically speaking, but it's not how the fan works, is the point. You could put it up against a wall and the fan is still going to work.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm nodding away. As if I sort of understand. I completely dismissed this out of hand to begin with earlier on. But then I did hear, you're right, somebody suggesting that you put the frozen bottles behind the fan, and that sort of sucks it from behind.
Well, no, because the fan doesn't suck in from behind.
No. It plays out from the front. And so I don't understand. I mean, I'm still sceptical of this idea anyway. But
there is a new podcast called Making Up Physics with Charlie Rowley. There's all manner of delights to get tucked into there. It is inevitable, of course, that... this one from Enid, who says, me, Ian and Charlie, it is so humid in this heat. The only thing that will cool you down from the frozen water bottles and fan is the spray of condensation blowing from the bottles. So I love the way Charlie has this great knack of just kind of nodding, but in a way that makes you feel, yeah, we've got this right. It's only after you scratch a little deeper you realise he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's got no clue whatsoever.
I used to be a special advisor to the government. I sort of used to sit in meetings and nodding. That was my contribution to...
People would go, wow, it must be right, that fella over there. Nodding like one of those things in the Chinese restaurant. He can't stop, like the Churchill dog. Can't stop himself. I don't know what the... what we do know, and Laney, who was the first person probably a couple of months ago on Heatwave 1, I don't even remember when that was now, she was the one who got in touch because she was in a very hot caravan. She lives in a kind of mobile homey kind of caravan, and she said it was too hot in here, and you offered the... sage-like advice. Again, another reason why Charlie didn't get the job at the Met Office was to go outside, was your advice, wasn't it?
It was, yes, because she specifically messaged in to say that the temperature within this mobile home camper van situation was about 42 degrees, I think she said.
Yeah.
And I just politely pointed out, well, the temperature was only 35 outside, so you're better off stepping outside. Which, to be fair, I don't think is a bad bit of advice, because when it gets a little bit cooler at night, that's the best time to walk dogs or things.
I mean, you were factually correct. I mean, obviously, if it is, if it is cooler somewhere, that doesn't mean to say it's cool. It's just cooler.
Cooler, yes.
So outside would have been a greater option. But of what has happened in the meantime, this drove Laney nuts, and she went on a journey, and she purchased herself an air conditioning unit. So now she sits there, gesticulating at hot passers-by.
Shivering in the caravan.
Shivering like a whippet in the caravan.
This is the effect we've had on people.
She doesn't know what to do with herself. No. She's a shadow of her former self. Nothing of her, frankly. Shaking away. But so she went for the air conditioner. Which we keep making this point, that you can't buy them at the moment because you try to find one. And I find this interesting because these things are, some of them are 700-800 quid. And I just think, surely people haven't just gone out and bought that, but I think some people have.
Yeah, and with the the pricing. What do they call the pricing when the price changes?
The surging.
The surging.
The surge. The increase.
The increase. It's
going up.
Yes, yes. There's
paying more.
There's a particular
extra cash. Pricier.
It'll come to me obviously as soon as I leave.
Yes, inflation.
No, it's
profit.
No. It's when the price when it can go up, but it can also go down depending
fluctuation.
On fluctuation. No, but it's a particular.
How many more words can we come up with? We come up with all the words.
No, there's a particular word for the price when the price of something goes up. When it's
increases,
no,
rises.
No. It'll honestly. I'll text you. I'll text you as soon as I've done. Please don't. I'll text it. I'll come back. I'll come back for a third time.
Come back in again. When a price. I honestly think we've exhausted every word that we possibly know
it's a specific,
into this concept.
But it's within market terms. It's within a business sort of setting where you have prices that increase throughout the hour. So beer could go up within if there's
price fixing. No, it's not that.
It's
price, dynamic pricing.
Dynamic pricing, yes.
Was that it?
That is it, yes. There is a thing called, yes, someone else got that back there. Dynamic pricing, where it can go, depending on, it could be for an hour, for example. They'll say, right, we'll drop the price of a beer, for example, to £2.50, which is unheard of in London anyway.
Yes.
But then everybody rushes by, then it'll go up with different hours, different times. So dynamic pricing for air conditioning units, I'm sure, is in full swing.
Is at the old dynamic method. Yeah, that's what they've employed there. Stephen says it's basically how air conditioning works, blowing air over cold coils. Using a fan to blow air over frozen bottles is more or less the same thing, which is why I didn't struggle to understand that. And only you, Charlie, thought it was a preposterous idea, and I just thought it was a basic law. It's not going to make it tangibly. I don't think you'd feel it unless you've got like a lot of bottles, a wall of these things, and then you blew the air. You would the air. Even just by having the frozen bottles in the room, the air would technically be cooler.
But I'll take your word for it and everyone else's word for it. I'm sure they can't all be wrong, but I would just be so tempted to drink it. I'd just be tempted to drink the water when it sort of cools, when the ice freezes, because that would just cool me down, wouldn't it?
Phil says, sorry, you're not quite correct. To allow the fan to blow, it must have open air to suck. So a hoover is a fan at the end of a tube, sucking quite hard to collect the dust. So in order to allow the fan to blow, it must have air to... Well, the fan is a propeller in this case, isn't it? So the propulsion of the blades and the rotation of the blades is what is blowing the air.
Yes.
It's... Yes.
But it must draw in air. It can't just be sort of blowing in. If it's blowing in one sort of direction, it's moving air around. But air must come round to the fan to then be blown away.
It's not a jet engine, Charlie.
To be blown.
It's not a 747. It's a bloody Argos fan.
Yes, yeah. But the suction of the Hoover is interesting. I'm interested to know more about how that works.
You're really interested. We'll do that next Friday, shall we? If Michael Portillo can do trains, we can do Hoovers.
Oh, we can. It's a hit.
Can you imagine?
It'd be a hit.
Oh, BBC Two would lap that up, wouldn't they? Hoovers with Collins and Rowley. Today, we're in Amsterdam. I don't know. Some old make of Dutch Hoover that they could... Vacuum, of course, is the correct name.
Oh, yes.
Hoover being the brand name. I'm not buying the fan thing. I mean, I know what Phil is saying, but given that fans come in sealed boxes sometimes, so you can have a fan that has a back on it. So there's nothing to... It's not taking anything from behind. You would have instructions saying, do not place this fan near a wall, because it needs maximum air to make it work.
Yes, and you've got all kinds of fans. I know you talked about earlier on. The fan that everybody thinks of is that three-propellered thing with a bit of mesh at the front. Sounds like a costume, sort of, Hannibal Lecter sort of bit of mesh sort of style. But you can get modern-day fans which are sort of oval shape.
Sorry, I lost you on Hannibal Lecter.
Costume. That was the drag show. That was my last drag show at HMP.
Yes.
Doncaster.
I think that's possibly one of the inmates that did the Hannibal Lecter thing.
Yes.
Does anybody do you remember those sort of bladed fans that some people put in the ceiling? I sense it was a sort of 1970s thing, which probably would have required being properly set up, properly wired in. And I would imagine a monumental waste of money. Because these can't have been the most effective fans.
No.
And, of course, they had nothing behind them. Well, Sam's got one. How did that end up there, Sam? Came with the house. So, does it work? So, Sam is explaining that the fan was in the bedroom when Sam's our technical operator today was explaining it was in the bedroom when they moved in. I mean, a bit like any fan, you will get something from it. It's not going to produce new air, whereas an air conditioner, a proper air conditioner, is physically removing hot air, and therefore it's able to deal with the remaining air by blowing a fan, and it's cold air. I didn't really explain it very well there, did I?
I'm interested to know the fan in Sam's bedroom, that's all.
So Sam is living the dream here. So Sam's fan in his bedroom, is it 3-prong? Or 4? Is it 3? Has also got a light attached to it. Which it does. They do have... I don't think the light goes out.
But surely, because it's powered by electricity, as most things are, doesn't that just create more heat? So, you're supposed to turn all your electronic devices off, aren't you, to sort of minimise... If it's a really hot day, you're supposed to turn all your electrics off just to stop them generating heat.
So the motor is generating. Well, somebody did make this point about... Well, no, I disagree, because I think what it doesn't do, any fan, whether it's on the ceiling or whether it's standing up on one of those things, is not going to... It's not magic. It can't defy the laws of physics and produce cold air. But it can, due to the propulsion of the blades and the mechanism that is employed in order to get the fan to function, it will move air around, which will often give an illusion of coldness, because you are essentially obliterating the heat particles that are forming a wall around the room, which inevitably ends... I'm just whittering here.
And I was hanging on your every word. I was thinking Professor Collins.
Knows his way around a fan, does our Collins. So I don't think it makes it hotter. It's just you just become more aware as you attune to it that actually it's not really making it colder. You're just getting a sort of temporary, satisfactory sense of the air is being moved. You're breaking up hot air.
And what's your view on the handheld fans? Because, well, the traditional one, where you sort of have... It is not electronic powered. It's
now
the one,
you're taking me down a whole new path, Charlie.
And you have to fan yourself. Apparently that generates noise.
Well, last night I was... I had to use the tube because I went to the Police Federation Bravery Awards last night. It was always a really interesting and powerful, emotional evening. And I jumped. I thought, do I get a taxi? Because I got a taxi there because for no other reason than to avoid a tube at rush hour when it's 32 degrees above ground, probably 42 in there and packed. I thought, I'm not doing it. So I got in an air-con, lovely black cab. On the way back, I thought, do you know, it's a bit cooler. It's now 10:30 at night. I'll jump on the tube. Man alive, it was still so hot. And then they say, oh, the Jubilee line's closed. Oh, thanks for that. Because of a train... What was the word? Phrasing? Move the train. If there's a train broken down, move the train. Move that train. Don't leave that train there. Move that train. Surely the idea of broken down, do we need that? No, it's in the way. Get rid of the train then. Can something not tow... Something can tow the train,
tow the train.
Surely they have a towing mechanism for this event.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was a guy sitting next to me, almost sort of Matador-esque, with a fan on the go, and I thought, you don't see that very often. He just suddenly...
And that was it. Yeah, you did. You don't see that very often. And you went home.
He was... Firstly, I don't know where he produced this thing from. Suddenly, out of nowhere, he sort of sat down, and everybody was obviously hot. And I'd been wearing a dinner suit, can you believe that? So I'd already taken the tie off and undone my shirt. And I just heard this noise as the fan was producing. You know the noise? It's the noise of a fan opening up. And then he proceeded to sort of, you can only do it. There is no non-camp way to use a fan. Whatever way you use it. You can't use it like that, like it's a weight lift, you know. You have to do that. It's always going to look, you get your emu fingers, you know, and it's always going to look kind of...
It's the wrist, it's a wrist action.
I can't even answer that. Let's talk to Rupert Bell as well. Nothing to do with fat. Rupert, can I talk's royal correspondent? Morning to you, Rupert. You're always a cool kind of bloke. I don't know where we were taking this conversation. Do you own a handheld fan?
No, and I never proposed to.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that. What about in your own abode where you are right now? Do you go? Have you got air conditioning? Have you got some kind of mechanism, a floor fan, a Dyson? What's going on over there at Bell Towers?
£9.99 off from some supermarket, a fan that seems to do the job. And I did have to require its use last night because it was pretty hot and sweaty in the Cotswolds last night. So there you go. So yes. I'm sure that your listeners really wanted to know that level
hot
of information.
And sweaty in the Cotswolds. That's why Gilly Cooper had a career all those years.
Yeah, well, something like that anyway. Yes, so good old Rupert Campbell, good old Rupert Campbell Black, no relation.
Absolutely right. Talk to us, though, about Meghan, because we know that Prince Harry came over here ready and waiting for his big monumental win against the free press, only to be told that, I'm afraid, you haven't won anything. Your claim was false. It bears no scrutiny to the truth, and therefore get out. Oh, by the way, and here's a bill for tens and tens of thousands of pounds, along with Elton and others. And there was this question mark about whether he's coming on his own or whether he's bringing the family, and that would be Meghan, Archie and Lilibet.
Well, the whole thing has been a continuous soap opera, different chapters every day, not quite sure where the plot is taking us. Obviously, the court case really set him back, and I think Meghan, what she does so often is goes and hides when Harry's not surrounded by good news, and obviously he'd set his stall out by saying, right, this is my big thing, I'm taking on the mighty press. But the judge's verdict and his details were damning about the way Harry conducted himself. Harry then comes out and accuses the judge of a whitewash. It is interesting, just slightly off kilter. The king, who likes his horse racing, had a winner yesterday called Point of Law, which, I mean, of ironies, because obviously Harry wasn't happy with the Point of a Law, but the king's bank balance was swelled by £113,000 yesterday. I'm sure he won't necessarily be offering it to Harry to pay his legal fees. But the main soap opera now concerns, will Meghan appear next week? Well, they're saying, and I'm yet to believe this, that she will be conducting a private visit with the children, and they will be in this country but will not be seen or heard. But that will be the big litmus test for the Sussexes. Can they keep it quiet? Can they make sure that it is a fully private visit with no indications or reports subsequently with what goes on? So, yes, they may be here for a private visit. Where do they go? Althorp, maybe in Northamptonshire. Will they go to somewhere where the king is staying? That will be interesting. But they're saying now, after he goes to Birmingham today to launch the Invictus Games, which takes place a year from now, there may be a private visit. But it's just been a continual soap opera, and I'm not sure how this particular episode is going to end.
Yes, it does seem sort of extraordinary. I mean, for goodness sake, can't they just meet up for a slice of cake and a cup of tea? That would be something.
Yeah, well, why? But they should. But the whole thing from day one has been, will they, won't they?
Yeah.
And it's basically been driven by the Sussexes, you know, using the security as a issue. Well, I'm pretty sure that if they go to the royal palaces, wherever the king may be or one of those, there's plenty of security on hand. This is where they seem to just be in a fog about it, the Harry and Meghan. They don't seem to, you know, they think they should. He wants bells and whistles, basically, security, to emphasise his significance within the royal family. Well, Princess Anne goes around pretty, you know, has security when she's doing official duties, but then it's low key when it's off duty, as it were. There is, of course, a level of security, and there will always be a level of security. But Harry's got to get it into his numbskull that he will get security, but they will be protected. I don't know why he thinks that he deserves better than anybody else within the royal family. And this, I think, is the frustrating aspect for the royal household.
Indeed. Rupert, great to have you on. Thank you. Rupert Bell, Talks royal correspondent on that. Charlie Rowley with us for a few more seconds. This from Matt, who says, morning, Colster. Firstly, sad to hear about Anne, what a wonderful politician. Secondly, what are you talking about, sealed fans? There's no such thing as a sealed fan. Every fan has an intake, so it's got something to blow, you cretin. Well, hang on, I'm not talking about the whole thing being sealed. That would just be a box. I'm talking, there's got to be the front of it, obviously comes out. You know, there's little floor fans that are kind of an odd sort of, you know, little floor fan. That doesn't have, there's not an open back to it.
No. That sounds like a dress. Sort of an open back dress.
Slingbacks. Yes, but now we've got to stop here, but do go off and buy a wooden handheld fan.
I will, yes.
And do post on social media the video, the evidence of this.
Yes, I think it'll just add to my butch, you know.
I think it will. It's like Antonio Banderas showed up. Charlie Rowley with us here on Talk. And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, That's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Kier Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Kier Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed, because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. We at Reform demand a general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome. It's 4 minutes after 8 o'clock, or thereabouts. Lots to get through this morning here at the home of Common Sense. Friday, July the 10th. And we welcome our new Prime Minister. Well, nearly. Andy Burnham has got the numbers, the only candidate on the block, backed by the vast number of Labour MPs. So essentially it's official. 10 days' time, he walks into numbers. It was quite extraordinary. Half an hour ago, wasn't even an MP, for goodness sake. And there he is, about to take the keys to the big job. David Miliband, glowing endorsements from Miliband. Congratulations all round. Very, very happy indeed. Is he on manoeuvres, Miliband? Is he looking for another gig? Elsewhere, Kemi Badenoch is purging her party of net zero fanboys. She wants would-be MPs who worship at the altar of climate change gone. Lots to get through there. And, of course, we are talking about the death of Anne Widdecombe, the former MP and MEP, regular contributor to Talk, who's died at the age of 78. Let's, I think, fittingly so, get a word with Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Morning to you, Nigel. Look, you knew Anne very, very well. I mean, people often talk about conviction MPs, and they don't come more in a more thorough shape than Anne Widdecombe.
She was an absolute force of nature. She never let anyone know, with any doubt in their minds at all, where she stood on all the great issues of the day. And she was formidable, too. I mean, I can tell you, the times when I used to get phone calls from Anne, abrupt Anne on the phone, saying she disagreed with what I'd done or what I'd said. And, you know, she'd come to London and we'd sit down over a coffee and talk things through. But that was the thing about Anne, that all the disagreements she had with us over policy and direction and all the normal debate, that was always kept behind closed doors. You know, in public, she was the most incredibly loyal ally. And I would say this, that if you cast your mind back to 2019, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, had said 108 times, we're leaving on the 29th of March, we're leaving the European Union. And of course, March the 29th came and went, and we hadn't left. And I was then rapidly putting together a brand new party called the Brexit Party.
Yep.
And I got a phone call from Anne, more or less out of the blue, saying, I want to be a part of this. I must be a part of this. And her coming on board was a major contribution to us smashing the Conservative Party to their worst result in 200 years, which led to Boris Johnson. And for all his faults, he did actually take us out of the European Union. So I think her role in that particular part of our political history was very significant. She made us look serious, she made us look real, and she was loyal. from that day onwards. And I mean, even this week she was doing interviews and on the phone and texting, you know.
She was on here on Talk just a couple of days ago, so in that respect it did seem quite surprising. And I would just add as well, Nigel, the fact that she had almost a second innings as an MEP, and I know she thoroughly enjoyed it. She told me many times she thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't. It's interesting. You've talked a lot about the establishment. I think she sort of had a little bit of this problem herself. Anne Widdecombe, you'd have thought in any other world would have been, she was designed to appear in the House of Lords after her House of Commons career was over. They didn't want her in there. Cameron didn't want her in there.
No. And even after her stint as an MEP, you know, she should have gone straight to the House of Lords. Yep. But they rejected her because of her Christian views. She had very, very firm views. She obviously converted to Catholicism. She held very traditional views about the family, about marriage, about abortion, about many of these things, which she believed in fervently. And that just didn't suit sort of modern, trendy times. And I think it's that held her back. But she'd never waver. Never waver. She knew what she believed in. You know, she'd been brought up in a very traditional way. Her father, you know, a naval captain during the war.
Yep.
And she was intensely patriotic to her fingertips. And she believed in sound values. And I'm afraid the Trendies didn't like that. But look, it doesn't matter. She is, and I'm going to put this to you, she is the best known female politician since Margaret Thatcher.
That's fair, yeah.
I don't think anybody else comes close. And the fact that she was sporting enough to do, you know, Strictly Come Dancing.
All of that.
A Big Brother.
Yep.
And then she was touring the country doing one woman shows, an evening with Anne Widdecombe, where she talked to audiences and she loved meeting people and she was very gregarious and, you know, she'd work hard during the day. And I remember in Brussels at 6 o'clock, you know, so come on, Anne, what about it? Let's go out. And she'd have a couple of large whiskies and enjoy herself. Yeah. And she, as I say, she was a force of nature, quite a remarkable woman, and obviously a very sad sudden death, and we'll hear more about that as the days go on.
And of course, incredibly loyal, and you know probably better than most, Nigel, that finding loyalty, you know, often you think you found it, and you might think you found it for a good few years, then suddenly somebody decides to leg it in an erroneous direction. You know, oh, OK, I thought you were my mate. This industry is full of that. If you'd said to Anne, look, I've got this by-election thing going on in Clacton, would you come and campaign with me? She would be there.
Oh, 100%. No question about it. In fact, she was saying as much on the phone on Tuesday to somebody. And she would have turned up, and she had that mix of being a famous politician, but also there was that touch of celebrity about Anne. That there's no doubt. But as I said earlier on this call, you know, any disagreements with Anne were always kept behind closed doors, a resolution reached, and she was intensely, fiercely loyal. And you know, the country is a poorer place without her.
Are you confident you can still put the bin out without the help of Anne Widdecombe on the campaign trail then, Nigel?
Well, it's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, here is a by-election. Here we have 78,000 registered, legitimate voters, and the Labour and Conservative parties are treating them with such contempt they don't even want to contest the by-election. So effectively, they got behind a guy, and, you know, John Harvey's his name. He is a writer for BBC left-wing comedies, and he's the representative of the Uni Party. And it says an awful lot. You know, Labour, of course, with Burnham coming in, don't want to lose their deposit. But here's the remarkable thing. In 2019, in that general election in Clacton, the Conservatives got 31,000 votes.
Yeah.
72% of the vote, one of their biggest wins in the whole country. Since then, twice they've tried to stop the county council elections in Essex going on. Now they oppose a general election with Burnham coming in from the outside, and they're not going to contest Clacton. I find it absolutely remarkable. I think it's contemptuous of the public. I really do.
When you were working out the other day what to do, and you'd had this, as I'm paraphrasing you here, but you know this kind of onslaught, this disproportionate focus, this constant debate about everything from, you know, the socks you'd purchased a few years ago to who might want to lend you a few quid, all of that. When you decided that this was the route to go, Nigel, did it occur to you at any point that it might just be you and a bin up there at the hustings, and that the Tories, the Lib Dems, even the Greens, Labour would all drop out? Was that ever thrown up as a possibility?
No, I didn't think that for a moment. But you know, they have acted in concert with each other as the uniparty. They're trying to turn it into a joke. But I mean, frankly, there shouldn't just be a Clacton by-election going on. There should be a general election going on. We've got a new Prime Minister coming in, you know, who's got no mandate of any kind at all. And I think the public are pretty sick of this game of musical chairs that goes on in number 10. So, no, I didn't expect them all to act together the way they did. But, as I say, they are the uniparty.
And just finally, a final point on this. What does campaigning in Clacton look like? Because there's another big election you've got to fight, and that's the Manchester mayoral one as well.
I know, there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. There's also a police and crime commissioner election going on in Norfolk. And there are by-elections, of course, every week. And I'm pleased to report that Reform last night had gains in England, Scotland and Wales. So whatever the mainstream media Westminster pile on, people are out there voting for us. Yeah, it's going to be a busy few weeks, but I want to use it to highlight the local issues that are affecting people's lives in Clacton, including a beach landing of illegal migrants last week, are also national issues. And whilst the Times and the Mail and whoever else can attack us every day, the truth is we're not discussing spiralling national debt. Nobody has got a serious solution, well, not at least the government hasn't, to stopping the boats coming across the channel. You know, the welfare bill's out of control. We're not debating the proper issues. And so rather than running away from this media pylon, and I repeat the fact, I've broken no laws, I haven't evaded any taxes. You know, there is a question that standards will look at as to whether I should have declared this gift or not. I believe it was private. They may take a different view, but that could go on for a year, we're told. So rather than running away from it, I'm running towards it, and I hope this by-election, whatever the attempts of the uniparty to sort of turn it into a joke, I'm going to use it to have some serious debate about national issues.
I would have thought as well, I mean, just on that inquiry thing, I know there's a suspension of the standards committee thing, but, I mean, how long can it take somebody? Surely half an hour to go, yep, that was within the rules, or it wasn't within the rules. You would think.
Remember that the whole thing with Boris Johnson went on forever, didn't it? Went on forever, yes. Yeah, and apparently Lucy Powell, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, has said it could take up to a year.
That's insane. I mean, what kind of system are we running here when that would take a year? No, Donald Trump posted and made the point that this is the sort of anti-Trump playbook playing out on you.
Well, that's what I believe, and that's why I thought, well, let's put it to the public. Let them, I mean, they've got the same level of information as the Standards Committee have got. Let them make a decision. Let the people decide.
And I made this point consistently this week, and I know that, you know, there's been all manner of people piling in on this. I think, to me, it's really rather simple. This thing could be sewn up within moments, but as you allude to there, Nigel, I think some people quite like elongating these things for whatever reason. It could mean, however, if they said, look, Nigel, yeah, OK, there's nothing wrong with, you know, you received some money, that's fine, personal gift. However, you should have done this, fine. If that meant that there has to be another by-election, then, because this is the other thing that keeps coming up, the Tories keep saying it, Kemi Badenoch said it, I think the Greens and others, oh no, we'll take part in a proper by-election, as if this current one is not authentic.
That is an insult to 78,000 voters. That is a complete insult to them. Look, I can't speculate on the future. All I can speculate on is what's going to happen in the next few weeks. And I'm asking voters to stick two fingers up to the establishment.
Nigel, good to talk. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine in Clacton. Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK and candidate for that by-election in Clacton. It's interesting because largely these debates, these issues around big stories such as whether it's Nigel Farage, whether it was Boris Johnson, Kier Starmer's suits, etc., They ultimately and invariably come down to where you sit politically. Very few people, other than me, because I'm actually a genius, are able to be objective about this stuff and look at this and say, well, actually, this is the deal. Objectively, and I think intelligently, this standards committee thing... by the way, I think Nigel Farage can only... I think he can only win out of this. It doesn't matter whether you like him, hate him, loathe him, love him, adore, whatever. I think he can... the result of Clacton is that Nigel Farage says, I just won a by-election and I won big. All right, that's going to be the headline. End of. So we can talk about all the little nitty, well, he said this and they said that, and he should have done it this way, should have done it that way, etc. No. He comes out with a headline, he's won. That's it. Finito. OK, he's won. But this standards committee thing, I refuse... I just said it to Nigel there, absolutely refuse to believe that that could not be... Look, there's a bit of paper here, and it says on it, if you did this, you broke the rules. If you did this, you didn't break the rules. Which one is it? Isabel Oakeshott is with us, Talks International editor. Isabel, you know a thing about bureaucracy. You've seen this in action. You've covered politics for a long, long time. I mean, if they can make a very simple thing more complicated, they will. And if they can make something that could be done and dusted within moments, make it last for days, months, or even years, they absolutely will.
Well, it was actually so good to hear Nigel on Talk just now, sounding really cheery and up for it and uncowed by this endless onslaught that Reform leadership is facing. And, you know, he's so right about the Clacton by-election. The attempt by everyone other than Reform supporters to portray this as some kind of farce, to portray it as some kind of joke, obsessing about Count Binface every minute of every day, saying it's been a big miscalculation, so on and so forth. There are actually a bunch of candidates standing in Clacton now, and if the main parties don't want to embarrass themselves by getting very few votes relative to Nigel, well, that's their prerogative, but it doesn't mean the whole process is a joke. And in the meantime, the systematic attempt to take down other members of Reform's leadership is truly breathtaking. Why is all this happening at once in the space of a few days? We've had Robert Jenrick on the front of so many papers facing some police investigation into some donation he received, I don't know what, yesterday, last night, yet more stuff about criminal inquiries, etc., etc. It is true. If people just pause for a minute, why is all this happening now? Why is it all happening at once? Attacks against Nigel, attacks against Robert Jenrick, attacks against my partner Richard Tice, one by one, systematic attempt to take down Reform's leadership. We knew that this would happen at some point, but the scale of it has frankly left me quite astonished. I did not expect an onslaught on this scale. These are upstanding people who have given up a lot to be in public life, and the scurrilous tactics that are being used to try to smear them and bring them down are a terrible reflection on the state of our democracy.
Is it a case, and you know how this can work out, Isabel, and notwithstanding everything you just said, which, you know, is clearly there, it's demonstrable, it's there for all to see what it's looked like. But journalistically, you also know that if there is a bone being thrown around Fleet Street, then the pack will seek it out. They'll try to add to it. They'll dive deeper. They'll look for the marrow until they can get to another story. They'll try and uncover something to see if there's another story. Is it more that than rather than conspiracy, just Fleet Street playbook playing out in the usual way?
Well, as a journalist, I'm definitely not going to criticise journalists for smelling something and wanting to follow the scent. That's what we do, and quite rightly too. What is different about this is the complicity and involvement on a scale which is hard to identify of institutions of the state. What we have here is the National Crime Agency sources within it evidently leaking material that is damaging to reform to selective journalists and newspapers. That is truly astonishing.
Why? Can I just say, sorry to interject, Isabel. I keep reading this, and you know, I'm aware of the story. Why is, I can't be the first person to say this, why is the leaking from the National Crime Agency not the biggest story here?
Well, precisely. The reason that we're certain that this is where the material is coming from is because you could credibly have a leak from one bank about a set of transactions involving that particular bank. Can't credibly have multiple leaks from multiple banks about multiple transactions all leaked to the same newspapers. How would that work? You'd have to have a network of sources in multiple banks, including the kind of slightly, you know, these very modern banks, which don't actually have a customer service hotline or anyone you can contact if you wanted a leak. So it can only come from the hub of where this information is held, which is the National Crime Agency. And just to remind people, because as soon as you say the words National Crime Agency in relation to any politician, of course it sounds like you're dealing with some horrendously corrupt politician. But the truth is the National Crime Agency receives some 3,000 little flags of unusual transactions in the UK every single day. This is a routine thing. Every time a bank says, I'm not that sure about this, you know, some bank teller, I don't really know where this came from or that came from. It is a matter of routine that it gets pushed on up the food chain. And in 99% of cases, no further action is taken. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It's a really decent system. I happen to think it goes pretty over the top. And many of our listeners will have had experiences of, for example, if they're lucky enough to get a bit of money from an inheritance, for example, suddenly you've got a lump of money in your bank account. This happened to me a few years ago. It wasn't a huge sum of money, but it was 6 figures. And you know, the number of questions I got about where the money came from, you know, it wasn't enough to say, look, my mum died. You know, do you need to see the will? You know, we've been through all this probate thing. HMRC knows all about this money. I've paid a bunch of inheritance tax, my family has. And you're still trying to paint me as some kind of money launderer. It's my inheritance. And this is the kind of thing that sometimes I think goes over the top. But there's nothing wrong with a system that raises eyebrows at interesting transactions, probably quite a healthy system. What's wrong is when the people at the top of that system, for reasons and motives of political interference, then selectively leak who these little flags and notifications...
Indeed, and even hearing you say it out loud, Isabel, just reaffirms what I said at the beginning. I mean, I cannot believe that is not... I noticed they gave a statement saying, you know, we can't confirm or deny it. It's like, sorry, deny it. Deny it if it's not happening, or investigate it if it is, and if there is the National Crime Agency, it's not a little part-time police force at the end of the road. This is big, and if somebody is leaking from there, doesn't matter what your politics are, then somebody needs to know, and the person doing the leaking needs to go to jail for a very long time. Isabel, thank you. We are slightly shorter this morning because we're quite crammed in this section. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor. Matt Vickers, Conservative MP and Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, joins us now. Morning to you, Matt. Nice to have you with us. You join us on a day, of course, that sad news over the last couple of hours that Anne Widdecombe has died. Of course, Anne Widdecombe predates your time as a politician, but nonetheless, the fingerprints and the DNA of Anne Widdecombe is all over the Tory party. She'll never be forgotten. Morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, absolutely devastating news, actually. She was a titan of British politics. Incredible lady, incredible parliamentarian, incredible public servant. She was the most forthright in sharing her views. She was the most unafraid to share those views. Incredible woman. I remember as a youngster watching on the television and thinking, this is some woman. She was a powerful, strong woman who said what she thought regardless. And then as time went on, I got to host her in the constituency several times. And sometimes you meet these big characters. You see them on screen and then you meet them behind the screen, you're disappointed. You couldn't be disappointed to meet Anne Widdecombe. She was the real deal. She was witty, she was entertaining, she was ridiculously intelligent, and she was one of life's characters, and the world is a much sadder place without her.
Indeed. Lots going on in your world, as in the world of politics, of course. We know that the next Prime Minister is now certain to be Andy Burnham. I mean, he forgot his name. Andy Burnham. The numbers all stack up. Nobody else has come up and saying, I challenge thee, or whatever convention there is. I'm sure there's some doffing of caps and a cape involved somewhere. But it's Andy Burnham. He's going to be the next... Extraordinary route to get the big job. Half an hour ago, he wasn't even an MP. 20,000 people said, he can be our MP, and now he's going to be the Prime Minister. What's that going to look like, do you sense? Is the feeling on your benches, on the Tory benches, Matt, that things are going to happen really quickly and the Labour Party will not be recognisable any longer from the one that Starmer led?
Well, the problem is it's the same old Labour Party. All we've heard from Andy Burnham, we haven't heard of a solution to the challenges that the country faces. He hasn't come up with any sort of plan of how we're going to fund defence, despite the fact the Secretary of State for Defence has quit because he thinks we can't even protect the country properly. He hasn't got any sort of plan to deal with the welfare state, the fact that welfare bill, that huge benefits bill, is growing and is being paid for by families across this country who are working hard and doing the right thing. He hasn't got any solutions to the energy crisis that we're undergoing, where the price of energy is going through the roof, causing absolute misery for families and putting businesses to the wall. All he's talking about is who else he's going to tax. We heard from Pat McFadden, didn't we? All the Labour discussions talk about who else are we going to tax, how are we going to tax them to pay for more benefits. There's no change. It's the same old Labour Party. Andy Burnham might be a better communicator. He might have nicer eyelashes and a nicer voice, but it is still the Labour Party. It still has no plan for hard-working people across this country.
Matt, just tell us, finally, you've been out doing something completely away from all of this, and that is you've essentially become a one-man customs-busting machine. Illicit cigarettes, what's going on?
Well, the thing is, so this is a stat we should all know because this should be a huge priority for people across the country. 45% of all cigarettes, not 4%, not 5%, 45%, nearly half of all cigarettes sold in this country are illicit. Across the country, huge volumes of dodgy vapes, of dodgy fags are being sold, not down dark alleys, in high streets, in broad daylight, from dodgy shops. This is it's putting people at risk. It's putting lives at risk. These things that come in, they aren't tested adequately. We don't know if they're safe. These people, these criminals, are putting lives at risk. They're dodging tax that should be paid to support our public services. They're undercutting genuine retailers on our high street who we already know are under huge pressure. And the money that they gain from this isn't going to charitable causes. It is supporting organised crime that is taking place in this country and the next. It's a real danger. It's happening in broad daylight. We need to get real on this and we need to do something about it. We went out there and did a raid in Darlington, raiding some of these dodgy stores, and to see it so brazen in our streets and the consequences of it so real, it needs to be a priority for the government. We've had amendments in there to try and toughen up notice orders to close stores, to get the notice to shut it down while they go to court and get the proper closure order. This now needs to be a priority. We need to tackle this head on. It's costing the Exchequer a fortune that could be supporting our public services. It's a disaster. It needs to be a priority for this government.
Matt, thank you for your time. Always good to see Matt Vickers, MP. He is Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party, speaking to us on that and the other issues of the day as well. Thank you to him. 03444 499 1000. Voice notes coming through thick and fast on a variety of issues. This one's on Andy Burnham, and it comes from George. Morning, George.
Morning, gents. Good job Andy Burnham's initials are AB, because in the next 6 months, we're going to see what Labour actually stands for. Absolute b****s. Have a good show. George in Leicester.
Labour, interestingly, saying they're considering an emergency law to deport that grooming gang leader. This is Shabir Ahmed, who served 14 years of his 22-year sentence for 30 child rape cases. He got less than 6 months. Basically, if you're going to be a child rapist, you know what, you may as well rape 40 instead of 1, because the sentence is basically the same. I mean, we're literally incentivising child sodding rapists.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's just gone 8:30. Morning. Welcome to the home of common sense. Loads to get on with. Ian Collins here, right here at the home of course, your views and responses to the big stories of the day. When we talk about Andy Burnham, or you like, we can talk about the things that are going on in by-elections around the country. The biggest story in town right now is a football match. OK, it's not any old football match. It's not Maidstone United versus Bromley like it was back in the day. Max Scott is with us. Max, of course, TalkSport reporter, knows he's encyclopedic on the world of football. Maidstone United versus Bromley. What is, when you were at football school, do you ever remember anything of those matches?
Yeah, remember them fondly.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there were 2 halves, 1 ball.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly.
22 players at the beginning of the game.
It was never a red, you know, all of that. We remember those moments. But closer to the contemporary goings-on in the World Cup. Big match tomorrow, of course. This is decisive. Well, they're all decisive. They're all big matches at this stage. England-Norway. But it's not come without a few, as these stories tend to do, without a few dramatic twists and turns.
Yeah, look, where do we start? Declan Rice has a sickness bug. He's essentially been quarantined from the squad in case any of that's infectious. Mark Gahey, England centre-back. Increasingly now there's the belief that he won't feature because he's got a hamstring strain. If he does, then you'd imagine he wouldn't play the whole 90 minutes. And then this Jarell Quansah, who was sent off rightly against Mexico, he's been given a 2-match ban. And of course, in the context of the White House's interference with FIFA in suspending following Balogun's red card, in the context of Cristiano Ronaldo getting a 3-match ban before the World Cup for elbowing Republic of Ireland's Dara O'Shea and having the first 2 games of the World Cup that he was meant to be banned for suspended, so he could play. FIFA have created an absolute storm, a mess, whereby because Gianni Infantino is looking out for his mates, whether that's Cristiano Ronaldo or Donald Trump, what he's done is raised huge questions about fairness and integrity. Because if Ronaldo and Balogun can have their suspensions lifted, then why can't Jarell Quansah in an England side that are struggling with injury, sickness already?
Right. Well, I don't even know how he's still the boss. I don't know why he's not been firstly taken away, I would argue possibly in handcuffs after that. I mean, the Donald Trump thing. By the way, the person I blame least is Donald Trump. If you're the president, give it a go, mate. You know, give it a go. He's the president. It's his country. It's not his fault, but the fact that they relented and went, yeah, all right, we'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, look,
that's where the
it's still a bit slimy from Trump, in my opinion. You know, yes, it's his country, yes, it's in, and you can say and understand the argument. You know, he's looking out for his country's interests, but it's still interference. And
of course, he shouldn't be doing it. But the real crime is with FIFA.
Is Infantino being a sycophantic, limp-wristed wet wipe who's allowing his people with more influence, and he's just cozying up to them. And that's what happens. You see it in life. You see it at school when people sidle up to very popular, powerful people. It often comes back to haunt them. And you're absolutely right. You know, the entire footballing fraternity has been calling for him to resign. He won't do that. He'll cling on to power as long as possible. And the problem we've got is, in extending the World Cup to 48 teams, Gianni Infantino has, and this is, you could argue, a good part of his work, given countries like Curacao, Cape Verde, and their football federations a lot more money. So there's a lot of loyalty for Infantino, and very few people willing to stick their head above the parapet to replace him. So all of that is a bit of a side conversation for England. The main issue, though, beyond the sickness, the suspensions, the injuries, is the heat.
Oh, the bloody weather again.
So this is what it's 5
So it's not about storms. It's just about
storms
heat.
is, I'd say, secondary now. There were initially concerns that at the same time as kickoff, 5 p.m. Miami time, there would be some thunderstorms. As we know, the weather over there is so changeable. There's still a potential risk. It's not massive. It's the heat. It's going to be 32 degrees. However, because of 60% humidity, the feels-like temperature is going to be 44 degrees. And at that point, the FIFA are allowed to delay a game for the sake of the health of the players, officials and the fans in the stadium. And so this is something to watch out for. We had it with Mexico. There could well be, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. UK time, more delays to an England World Cup game. So we've got to keep our eyes on that.
This was, I mean, I could talk about this forever. The venue, when I say the venue, the location of the entire World Cup was the most ridiculous thing, I think, given all of this. Because anyone who, you wouldn't have to be a weather forecaster.
Yeah, a meteorologist.
To know that this was always going to be a big problem. The time zone thing, I'm sorry, doesn't work. If you look at the final of the World Cup is an 8 o'clock kickoff here. Right? That should be the latest any match at all in the entire tournament was. There is an absolute imperative for, and I wouldn't say a bias, but the European audiences are key. The African audiences are key. Neither of those two continents are on this flipping weird time zone over there in Miami. And the bloody weather. I mean, I'm sorry, I know we've had World Cups in controversial places before for maybe other reasons. But this was ridiculous. And we keep seeing the same thing.
And I think you're feeling that from fans, particularly in the group stages where, you know, Ian, you and I know what it's like to get up for work early. My alarm goes off at 3:45 in the morning and there's kickoffs at 2. I'm coming into work and I'm watching the last 10 minutes of the game. So there's so much football that fans are missing. Thankfully, last night the quarter-final was at 9, so more people are going to watch that in Europe. But you're absolutely right. I think there is a sense among some fans that this hasn't been a World Cup that's been for them, not only for the viewing times, for the prices of tickets, for the introduction of hydration breaks, which are sort of destroying the very fabric of the game being that cliched game of 2 halves. It's now a game of 4 quarters, so that the sponsors can get more money. Don't tell me it's about anything other than that, because even in a climate-cooled stadium, even in a stadium where it's just 17 degrees, like England played in their first World Cup game, they're still having hydration breaks.
Because they can't not have them now, can they? Because once they started them... I'm sure I watched a match where there wasn't one.
No, they've been in every single game.
Because the whole point is that it's a break, whether it's hydration or not, so you can't
It's a tactical sponsors break, that's what it is. So
hydration
it's not quick drink a Lucozade, quick stretch, get back on the pitch.
No.
It's 3 minutes so that there can be a TV ad for the broadcasters in America and the sponsors can be happy. In Qatar, a desert country, hydration breaks were only mandated when it was above 30 degrees. And so that's much more common sense. And, you know, you talk rightly about the concerns around having it in Qatar last time out. In 2034, it's going to be in Saudi Arabia. But fans that went to Qatar, compared to fans that are in the States, they loved it much more. It was all in one place. It was easily accessible. It was, you know, it was very welcoming. Yes, it was different culturally, but it turned out to be, in many ways, for fans anyway, a positive experience. Now fans are getting absolutely shafted left, right and centre for the prices of food, tickets, travel. They're going from one country to another. And so there have been questions about, as you say, having it mainly in the United States and, of course, Mexico and Canada.
Yes, I think the idea, where was the location of the 26th World Cup? It was in America and Canada and Mexico. No, so you can't be in 3 places.
I totally agree. America's big enough.
It's correct, even if it was just in the States and they were flying from California to New York. I mean, that would be bizarre down there to Florida, etc.
You could keep it in one state in America. And to your point about the European audience, why not? Let's just go back to the roots of having it in a footballing nation that loves the game. I don't care if some of the games are in a 25,000-seater stadium, because everything around that is a culture that sings football. Stick it in Poland, stick it in Germany, stick it in England, stick it anywhere in Europe, and the World Cup is going to be, as an experience for fans watching and going to it, and be far, far more enjoyable, without a shadow of a doubt.
100%. So what we have, just a point on the temperatures, I mean, we said this just off air, Max, if it's going to be really, really hot, we are playing Norway on that specific point, thank the Lord, because this is a country. Yeah. It's not like we're playing the Mexicans or the Argentinians at this point, where they would go, we're used to this heat. The Norwegians, you know, are not used to heat no more than we're used to heat. So.
Yeah, maybe they're used to a few more saunas than us with the ice baths and all that sort of stuff.
But colder, you know, winters, you
absolutely.
Know. So, so there's no obvious advantage in that sense. But in terms of how this thing's going to end up, so we've got Rice has got a tummy bug.
Yep.
Which is a bit rubbish, really, isn't it? I mean, bring me a hamstring over a tummy bug.
Yeah, I think he'll play, though. I think he'll play. The biggest risk is Mark Gahey, and we're playing against a Norway side who are greater than the sum of their parts, Ian. Yes, some of the parts are great, Martin Odegaard and Erling Haaland, but this is a team that are playing beyond themselves, and that's the challenge for England, to not be complacent and to recognise their real sort of strengths. My prediction is England 2, Norway 0. England will score early-ish, maybe even from a penalty, and then towards the end of the second half, Norway will be pushing for an equaliser. England will score on the counter.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because what you want to say to the England team, you know what you did the other day? Do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that. And, of course, it doesn't pan out like that.
It doesn't. But Thomas Tuchel's been promising that England will get better as this tournament progresses. Yeah. And I think that will happen because the game opens up. Teams need to win games. They can't be looking for scrappy points to get through a group stage. So I am confident, but it is going to be harder than we think on paper.
I think you're absolutely right. But, you know, we take every win. It's so exciting. This. I can't wait for tomorrow night. Yeah. It's just brilliant. And, you know, there we are at this stage. Isn't it funny, when the Egypt-Argentina result, which I lost the will to live that night, because I thought, well, 2-0 up, that's it. Argentina gone. And, of course, you want those clubs to be gone at this stage. I wanted France to be gone last night. It was never going to happen in a million years. But Argentina, I did think was going to happen, but that was, like, going to happen. And then, of course, who pitches up with that amazing assist on, I think it was the first goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, first goal and then scored the second.
A 41-year-old footballer.
It's absolutely crazy. Lionel Messi just continuing to show that he is better than Cristiano Ronaldo, and he always has been.
Yeah,
they're going to be
whatever
tough.
Piers Morgan says, he is absolutely better than Cristiano. Demonstrably. I mean, watching Ronaldo in that last Portugal match was quite sad in a way.
Yeah. But it was sad, but equally, for somebody that talks about themselves in the third person constantly, I think it's a bit calmer in.
I think so. Enjoy the weekend, Max. It's going to be brilliant. Max Scott with us, TalkSport reporter on the... Sorry, you said something in my ear, Christian, didn't you? And it went to... Fantastic. Let's talk to, and of course, the match tomorrow. All of it covered on TalkSport. You will miss nothing at all. Thank you to Max. Let's get a caller on Widdecombe. Maggie is in Devon. Maggie, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. I'm just phoning up about that gorgeous lady that we've lost.
Yeah.
I watched her on Talk a couple of days ago, and I thought, I've never seen her look so wonderful. She looked like an angel that day. She was pale. She had her eye make on her hair. She was calm. I can't believe it. Oh, what a loss to this country and to the world, actually, for all she put into this country. She loved it so much, Ian.
She really did. I mean, it's worth having a little listen to that last appearance she made with Mark Dolan. This was just on Wednesday.
Now, this is a very decisive man. I mean, this is the man who, for years and years and years, you know, we heard from successive governments, so you can't do anything about ECHR, we've just got to obey their judgments. And Nigel said, well, no, actually, we don't. Now, that is the sort of decision-taking that is needed in the leader of the country. And he has now taken a very similar attitude in this personal circumstance. And he has said, you know, I don't have to put up with all this hounding and harassment for as long as, you know, the establishment or the press fancy it. I can actually take matters into my own hands now. And that is what he's done. And I think that's what makes Nigel Farage so different.
Indeed. Maggie, thank you very much indeed for your call. That was Anne Widdecombe just 2 days ago, appearing with Mark Dolan here on Talk. Lots to talk about. The general election, is that going to happen? Clacton by-election, Manchester mayoral election, the coronation of Andy Burnham. On all of those points, well, certainly a couple of those points. Let's get a voice note. This comes from Darren. Morning, Darren.
Morning, Ian. I'm just listening to your commentary in relation to Nigel Farage, and what I can gather and what I can sort of read in between the lines from what Lucy Powell's saying, I think we are going to be heading into a general election by May 2027. And for her to automatically or say this could take a year, I think this is a deliberate ploy by Labour to keep this ongoing so that when it comes up towards that general election and Farage is doing his campaigning, they can discredit him even more on the campaign trail, saying, well, Nigel, you're still being investigated for all your misdealings or whatever, and we're still not got down to it yet. So that is one way of trying to pull down reform, and I think this is another playbook sort of tactic from Labour and from the Conservatives.
The thing that most makes me angry about Kier Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, good morning. 10 to 9. It's Ian Collins in for Jezza on a Friday morning. So much to get through. Let's get a voice note on the lovely Anne Widdecombe, who sadly, we hear today, has died aged 78. This comes from Sarah. Morning, Sarah.
Morning, Ian. Morning, Charlie. You two do make me laugh together. You really do. A couple of mischievous schoolboys, but please carry on making us laugh, because we really all need cheering up right now. Oh, gosh, very, very, very sorry to hear about Anne Widdecombe. She was a formidable character. I've always had the greatest respect for her. Not agreed with absolutely everything that she said, but boy, did she command a room. But very, very sad, and sadly, we need more voices like hers, not less of them. It's been quite a week, hasn't it? And I do do really worry about the future of this country short term. At least I hope it's short term. And I think reform won't are any hope. And I'm not sure we've even got that anymore. But anyway, we'll keep our chin up, we'll carry on and get on with it because we're British and the weather's nice. Thanks again. Bye.
Sarah, great. I love that last line. We're British and the weather's great. And there's absolutely something in that. Talking of the weather, the World Cup, it's going to be perhaps tricky for the team, but if you're watching it in a pub, it'll be quite nice if it's a bit warm at 10 o'clock at night. No escaping it, of course. We're marking, of course, this massive tournament of football in style here at Talk. If you've not heard about this, I don't know where you've been, but how would you fancy pocketing an amazing £26,000 completely tax-free? You could do a lot with 26 grand, right? You could attend to the mortgage, take a holiday, treat your other half to something, and just take the kind of heat out of the finances for a bit. So if your balance could do with a boost this summer, here's everything you need to know.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. To arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
26,000 quid, give it a go. This comes from Kim in Northamptonshire, who says, why was the election process not so criticised with Andy Burnham? Surely it's the same thing. I think the Andy Burnham Makefield election process was weird, but it's not illegal. Nigel Farage's by-election is not illegal. I think the questions around it are... well, there's many, but one of them is that Andy Burnham only stands to win, as he did, and become Prime Minister. Nigel Farage potentially compromises something by, if he got fewer votes, for example, than he did last time. The fact that no one's standing against him means he can't claim to be against the establishment. I don't believe that's quite true, by the way, but they would be the general accusations against him. So, but I take the point that Kim is making. Kim says, I think Farage has calculated all of this. I feel he knows the rules so well, he's using them against the establishment. So they fall for the trap and they can't see it. Yeah, there's a lot of them that would see it, I would suggest. Everything Farage has called has come true. Just look at the boats. I'm just looking for the general election next year when the establishment have egg on their face. Will there be one next year? At the moment, reform would possibly have to get into bed with the Tories. How do you feel about that? Richie says, Anne Widdecombe was only on Talk on Tuesday while Mike Dolan was standing in. She looked fine, just goes to show you never know when your ticket is up. R.I.P. Anne Widdecombe. It's true, I know she was 78, but 78 isn't really that old any longer. But also, there was no sense, and maybe there's things we didn't know, who knows, but there was no sense, certainly for looking at her and hearing her, that Anne Widdecombe was ill. And this one from Linda says, morning, Ian, I agree with one of the listeners who messaged earlier. You and Charlie should have your own show. The way you both end up with fits of giggles is brilliant. It's infectious. A welcome escape from all the doom and gloom we hear every day. It will always put a smile on my face. It was always also very sad to hear about the news of Anne Widdecombe. She was a lovely lady and, to me, one of the last old-school MPs. They certainly seem few and far between these days. Thank you for another great show. I always love listening, says Linda, with a little rose there as well. Linda, that's very kind. Kind words. I don't, often people say to us, oh, you and Charlie should get something going, like a podcast. Like, everyone's doing a podcast. They're all over the flipping place. But I can see that. I don't know what it sort of carry-on politics kind of thing. It's a little bit fanage, we could call it, because we seem to have majored on fans. That's really how our mine and Charlie's relationship properly bloomed, was through the conduit of hot weather and a random text that we got from Laney. That's how it all began. We will watch this space. You never know what might happen. OK, 4 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's get the latest sports news.
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
From The Sun.
And Catherine Walsh joins us, Man United reporter for The Sun. Catherine, morning to you.
Good morning.
One story in town, of course, but it's not without a few controversies that involve the weather and sickness. What the heck is going on?
I know, there's just been plenty of things to dig into. There's been great football, but a lot of controversy too. And the latest controversy in that is the fact that England defender Joao Konsa has been given an extended 2-match ban.
Why would that happen? Just talk us through that, if we even know. I mean, what's the extended ban? Surely you get a ban and that's your ban, and then somebody comes along. I mean, we know that FIFA like to get rid of bans that were already in place as long as somebody makes the right phone call. What's the idea with, oh, yeah, your ban's going to be extended? What happens to make that occur?
So essentially, Konsa was sent off against Mexico for a slight tackle that he'd made in the second half, and it ordinarily would have been a 1-match ban, but FIFA, it's the same in the Premier League, do have the right to overview the decisions, go to a panel and then make another decision. So they do a final review essentially, and it was bumped up to serious foul play, which means that the ban went up from 1 match to 2 matches.
It's a flipping clown show over there, isn't it? I mean, you've got them rescinding and overturning a ban, and now you've got them increasing a ban. If I was FIFA, I'd keep my mouth shut on matters red card related, because it's not a great look for them. Doesn't seem to, I don't know, you know, like the Olympic Committee, all these big sporting committees, doesn't seem to make much of a difference. They sort of do their own thing. It's not been, I would say, not a great look for FIFA, and clearly a little bit troubling for us.
Certainly, and FIFA have really shot themselves in the foot. You know, they've opened a can of worms here. As you say, they suspended the exact same tackle, the same foul that a USA player made in an earlier game. He was supposed to be banned for 1 game. Donald Trump made a phone call to the FIFA president, and they completely wiped the ban for the rest of the World Cup.
Unreal.
England were annoyed by that, but they have to move forward to play Norway without Konsa.
Indeed. We've not got long, Catherine, but Declan Rice has a tummy ache. That's what I'm hearing. What's going on?
Yes, Declan Rice has a stomach bug. He has not trained this week and is a doubt to face Norway tomorrow. You can't play a quarter-final match without training for a week, I would suggest, right? So is that almost a dead cert that he's not going to be there? It's so difficult because Rice is so important to this England team. Correct. These players, they already have a lot of other doubts, including Reece James. Yeah. And Jed Spence, so it looks like they're the let's hope this horrible story, part of the story, stops there. Catherine, thank you for that. Catherine Walsh, Man United reporter for The Sun.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. Good morning. Friday. Where are we? Friday the 10th of July. We're 10 days away from a new Prime Minister, by all accounts. Andy Burnham is all but, well, he's there. He's done it. The numbers all stack up. Nobody else is challenging him. We're continuing to look at that. I thought it was interesting that David Miliband, not Ed, David Miliband, the other one, being very gushing in his endorsement of Andy Burnham. Not that it means very much. He's no longer an MP, of course. But does it mean that he's on manoeuvres? Is something else going on? Elsewhere, Kemi Badenoch purging her party of net zero fanboys. She wants would-be MPs who worship at the altar of the climate crisis gone. Thoughts on that? And we are, of course, marking the very sad news we heard this morning of the death of Anne Widdecombe, who's died at the age of 78, a regular with us here on Talk. Earlier we spoke to Nigel Farage, who gave us this tribute. Morning to you, Nigel. Look, you knew Anne very, very well. I mean, people often talk about conviction MPs and they don't come more in a more thorough shape than Anne Widdecombe.
She was an absolute force of nature. She never let anyone know, with any doubt in their minds at all, where she stood on all the great issues of the day. And she was formidable, too. I mean, I can tell you, the times when I used to get phone calls from Anne, abrupt Anne on the phone, saying she disagreed with what I'd done or what I'd said. And, you know, she'd come to London and we'd sit down over a coffee and talk things through. But that was the thing about Anne, that all the disagreements she had with us over policy and direction and all the normal debate, that was always kept behind closed doors. You know, in public, she was the most incredibly loyal ally. And I would say this, that if you cast your mind back to 2019, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, had said 108 times, we're leaving on the 29th of March, we're leaving the European Union. And of course, March the 29th came and went, and we hadn't left. And I was then rapidly putting together a brand new party called the Brexit Party. And I got a phone call from Anne, more or less out of the blue, saying, I want to be a part of this. I must be a part of this. And her coming on board was a major contribution to us smashing the Conservative Party to their worst result in 200 years, which led to Boris Johnson. And for all his faults, he did actually take us out of the European Union. So I think her role in that particular part of our political history was very significant. She made us look serious, she made us look real, and she was loyal from that day onwards. And I mean, even this week she was doing interviews and on the phone and texting, you know.
She was on here on Talk just a couple of days ago, so in that respect it did seem quite surprising. And I would just add as well, Nigel, that the fact that she had almost a second innings as an MEP, and I know she thoroughly enjoyed it. She told me many times she thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't. It's interesting. You've talked a lot about the establishment. I think she sort of had a little bit of this problem herself. Anne Widdecombe, you'd have thought in any other world would have been, she was designed to appear in the House of Lords after her House of Commons career was over. They didn't want her in there. Cameron didn't want her in there.
No. And even after her stint as an MEP, you know, she should have gone straight to the House of Lords. But they rejected her because of her Christian views. She had very, very firm views. She obviously converted to Catholicism. She held very traditional views about the family, about marriage, about abortion, about many of these things, which she believed in fervently. And that just didn't suit sort of modern, trendy times. And I think it's that held her back. But she'd never waver. Never waver. She knew what she believed in. You know, she'd been brought up in a very traditional way. Her father, you know, a naval captain during the war. And she was intensely patriotic to her fingertips. And she believed in sound values. And I'm afraid the trendies didn't like that. But look, it doesn't matter. She is, and I'm going to put this to you, she is the best known female politician since Margaret Thatcher.
Lovely tribute from Nigel Farage there. I think also equally as well-known female politician since Margaret Thatcher is Edwina Curry, who joins us now. Edwina, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ian. Good morning.
Nice to have you with us. Look, you know, Anne had a remarkable career, a remarkable life. She was a remarkable person. She could be a bit clunky. That was part of her charm. People loved her. Those that didn't still respected her. What's your views and memories of Anne Widdecombe, Edwina?
Well, Ian, I knew Anne back in university days. So I'm talking about over 50 years. And in many ways, our careers were parallel. She was quite a really spiky character. I mean, it was extraordinary when she got to do Strictly Come Dancing, and she suddenly realised that she could be loved. She could actually be seen as a warm, funny, clever, attractive woman, attractive personality. I think she was absolutely astonished because she'd spent all her life, way back from student days, assuming that she was against the world. And that she was, her job in life was to fight everybody and to fight whatever was going on. That made her very difficult to make friends with. But I think it diminished her incredible intelligence and her ability to speak, her ability to put complex ideas into straightforward language. She didn't realise that perhaps if she had been, I don't know, in some ways, a warmer personality to begin with, she could easily have gone an awful lot further than she did.
Yeah, it's a very good point, isn't it? She was in a perpetual battle, as it were, and she embodied that almost. And I wonder, you know, I'm sure a psychologist or a psychiatrist would give us a deeper reason as to why she was. And I thought that was brilliant. You said at the beginning, Edwina, that, you know, being on Strictly, she suddenly, wow, people actually like me. This has never been my spitting image. Picked it up. I mean, you had your dalliance with spitting image as well. I think you've still got the puppet in your office there, haven't you?
Sitting behind me, yeah.
Indeed.
It's right there.
And as she did as well. But it was, I don't know whether she played to it or whether she just resigned herself to it, but that was her character, which was, I think, for many people, and you would know this up more closely to her politically, Edwina, I would imagine it was also infuriating to some people as well.
Well, bear in mind at the time that we were active, there were very few women in Parliament at all. When I was elected, only 23, and when Anne came in at the next election, there was still only a couple of dozen. And you were either seen as kind of, you know, malleable and easy to push around, or you were seen as very spiky and difficult. And that applied to the both of us. Her reaction to that was to accept it. And I think that was probably something to do with being an only child and her background and all the rest of it. And it bled into the way she acted as a minister. I mean, for example, she was a Home Office minister, and she actually defended shackling pregnant women prisoners to beds in the maternity ward while they were in labour.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that, you know, any woman that had actually been through marriage and having children would have countenanced that. They'd have just said, oh, for goodness sake, get more staff. But Anne, you've got a picture up now of Anne waving her finger at everybody. That was Anne. That was when Anne felt comfortable having a big row and having a big shout in that spiky voice of hers. And there was something that was really a little bit sad about that. A more rounded woman, a more rounded personality, I think, could have achieved an awful lot more. One of the other things I didn't care for about her was her stated belief that science could do something about people who were gay. And I'm thinking, what science are you talking about, Anne? Have you actually looked at this? Have you thought about the impact that might have? How did it occur to you that gay people are actually voters? They're not something separate. They're not aliens from another planet. And actually, they're naturally Tory voters. They end up having to pay an awful lot of tax, usually. There was an arrogance about her beliefs and a lack of kindness, I thought. It wasn't that that came from her religion. She joined the religion that had very strong, rather rigid approaches to some of these ideas.
I do wonder whether she kind of wore two hats. She was obviously an MP for Maidstone. I was just down the road in Ashford, and I kind of got to know her journalistically a little bit back then. I was absolutely terrified to interview her, Edwina, because I was new and she was Anne Widdecombe, and, you know, I thought she was, you know, going to shout at me or something. But when you spoke to constituents in May, it's almost like the Thatcher story. You know, Thatcher could have a right old pop at Geoffrey Howe, but talk to one of the secretaries in Downing Street and they'll tell you a very different story of Margaret Thatcher. And I think constituents in Maidstone and that neck of the woods felt that she was a really good constituency MP. She was very accessible. She was very malleable, open to researching and following things up. She took it very seriously. Almost the perfect constituency MP in that respect.
That is so good to hear, and especially from somebody like yourself, an observer, a young observer, looking in and without any preformed opinions. I suspect that if you were a constituent that had a problem, she was exactly the kind of MP that you would want on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be Kent County Council when she was phoning you up to say, what the hell are you doing about Madge's waterworks?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. She was. There wasn't an ego in there. She wasn't doing it for herself. She did it for whatever she felt to be the right thing at the time, and she took on board very much the conventional approach to being a member of Parliament. She was the same kind of member of Parliament that we've had in constituencies, you know, for 200 years in this country, and I think that that would be really something that the local people would recognise. They might actually go to her not agreeing with any of her views, and then they would come away saying, well, she got things sorted for me. She sorted them, she told them, and she stuck at it until she got the answer. That, I think, is admirable. I love the way she actually went to the European Parliament. She hated the damn place, but she went there. And she wasn't prepared to accept any of their rules. She was standing up for the things that she believed in. That, I thought, was admirable. And I think she rather enjoyed herself when she was there, much to her own surprise.
Yeah, I think she absolutely did. And I was there broadcasting on the very last day that we were members of the EU and had a sneaky glass of wine with her. She was always, you know, it was never a straightforward conversation with Anne, as you know, and she was often, you know, it was always a little bit awkward, but you know, that was kind of part of the charm in a way, where once you got your head around that, it sort of worked. And she was in buoyant spirits, I can tell you. Edwina, great to have you on. Lovely to speak with you as ever. Edwina Curry, of course, former Conservative Minister. Let's speak to Steve Baker, former Conservative Government Minister as well. I mean, Steve, nice to have you with us. Whether she was your era, Edwina's era, whether she was somebody else's era, everybody knows who Anne Widdecombe is, right?
Yeah, she was as close to being a national treasure as any politician could ever get. And, yeah, she'll be lamented by many. I recognised both the compliments and the critique that Edwina gave of Anne. But, yeah, we certainly all knew who she was. I almost feel like I grew up watching her on the TV. It's probably not quite there. She wasn't that much older than me, perhaps.
No, but there was that.
23 years.
There was that sense, wasn't there, that she's, you know, some people feel that they've sort of been there for absolutely ever. And, I mean, you must have noticed it when when I went into the press gallery, Steve, and you would have noticed it when you first became an MP, and you're walking around, you might have been there a couple of weeks, and you look around and you go, oh, my God, that's that bloke from the telly. And there's still or they're in the House of Lords or something. I remember bumping into Geoffrey Howe in a lift. It was like, I might as well have bumped into JFK. It was extraordinary.
Well, Ian, you raise a very important point. Now, your listeners and viewers might look at me and think, well, he's one of those guys on the telly, but I can assure them and assure you that when I went up to the House of Lords, or indeed saw Edwina around, or other figures, perhaps figures from the Labour side, you know, you do think, wow, that's that guy I've been watching for 20 years on TV. And it's a very strange feeling indeed. And she was certainly one of those people. We knew who she was. I think we thought we knew her character and her views.
10 days from now, there is no question about it, Steve. No one's going to challenge him. He's got all the numbers, and half an hour ago he wasn't an MP, for goodness sake. And in 10 days' time he becomes the Prime Minister. What an extraordinary journey.
It is absolutely incredible. Yes, if you watched it in a movie, you'd think, wow, what a story. I mean, he's got 5 days until nominations close, and I think you're absolutely right. At this point, it's absolutely inconceivable that he'll be challenged. For him to have been challenged, it would have required really serious scrutiny of him and his policies, and for something he said to have fallen apart. But, you know, I'm afraid Nigel's occupied the airwaves, and that's prevented that scrutiny. So, you know, we'll never know now. He will almost certainly become Prime Minister. We don't really know what he stands for. I think what he really stands for is being Prime Minister of the United Kingdom as a Labour MP. And, you know, in a sense, fine, because he'll try to unite his party. At least they should get a fairly good go at applying their bad and broken ideas to our problems. But it's not going to be good for our country, and there's a lot wrong with it. But yeah, it does look like it will be.
What is the sense that you get, Steve, as the kind of Labour Party is going to run? And that might be a stupid question to throw to Andy Burnham, because it depends on who you talk to, what day of the week it might be. We know he's been a Blairite, we know he's been a Corbynite, we know that he's talked about some issues that are, you know, just sort of designed to give business confidence, and then other issues, like he mentioned Israel yesterday, saying Labour got it badly wrong, which would suggest he would come down as very much critical of Israel, a slightly different position from the one Kier Starmer had a little while ago. Who is he going to, this sort of chameleon character, who's he likely, what's he likely to settle on once he gets the big job?
I think he's likely to settle on radiating the vibes that keep his party together. I mean, that's why he's changing the position on Israel. But, you know, let's not forget his fiscal room for manoeuvre on tax and spend is extremely limited. Taxes are up at a huge height, a historic high, and he needs to spend more on defence, and he needs to cut welfare. Those are not things which Labour MPs like voting for. So his fiscal room for manoeuvre is very limited. That possibly means he'll start doing authoritarian things to signal virtue in other directions. So, for example, tightening up the Online Safety Act, doing undesirable things on free speech. You know, it could get really, really ugly with Labour MPs claiming the moral high ground, but doing things which cut squarely across the principles of a free society. That's what I'd be worried about, because he can't do things on the economy, really. He hasn't got any movement to do so. So where does he go? He probably goes to, you know, Labour vibe-based authoritarian measures, and it could be really ugly.
Steve, great to have you on. Have a lovely weekend. It's going to be a beauty out there. Thank you to Steve Baker, former Conservative government minister, with us on the programme. And, of course, former hard man of Brexit. This in from Sean in Somerset. It says, morning, Ian. So David Miliband is on manoeuvres for a place in the cabinet. David, Ed and Burnham, the Labour rejects, are now in charge. What wasn't good enough 16 years ago is now the saviour. Makes me chuckle. The country's going backwards. I agree 100% with that. What also makes me chuckle, Sean and others who are making fairly similar points, is this, where did it come from that Andy Burnham was the saviour of anything? Andy Burnham left Westminster to become the Mayor of Greater Manchester. When did he leave? About 2017 or something? Nobody in that intervening period ever, in fact, even before that, nobody ever said, oh, you need Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham's the man. So, oh, Andy Burnham. No one ever said any of that stuff. Never ever happened. In fact, on the times that he did try to be leader, he failed on 2 occasions. And then somehow, almost out of nowhere, like a mirage, like a weird, almost alchemy being achieved. Suddenly, tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be Andy Burnham. It was that, through the fog, came our Andy, just a normal chap doing normal things. Him. How did that happen? How did it happen so quickly, so fast, and without precedent? That's the funny thing. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note on Nigel Farage. Here's Shirley. Morning, Shirley.
Good morning, Ian. It's Shirley in the Cotswolds. I'm going to make a prediction, Ian. I think that the reason that these people in reform are all being investigated is to get them into the weakest position possible before Andy Burnham sweeps in and calls an election. And I think that we are beginning to see the end of reform and a very, very long time with a Labour government. It's definitely time to leave the country. This is a very, very sad day. And according to one politician yesterday, this has been planned by Burnham for the past year. Have a good day, Ian. Bye.
And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 9:25. Dave says, me and my wife recently started using OnlyFans, because we're talking about fans, because our air conditioner broke, and this will definitely help pay for a new one. I like it a lot. We have sort of slightly descended onto the area of how to keep cool. I know we're not reinventing the wheel with radio here. Naturally, it comes up. This one in from Mark, North Wales. A fan uses a motorised mechanism to spin angled blades. This rotation displaces air, creating a pressure difference that sucks air from behind the fan and forces it forward into the room. The moving air creates a cooling breeze by accelerating the evaporation of sweat from your skin. Now, what we focused on here was the behind the fan thing. What do you mean behind the blades? Well, literally behind the fan. What happens when the fan is in a box? Like an encased fan? A little fan you can have, you know, small fan heaters you can put on the floor, or coolers. Will just spin a blade around. What about putting a fan against a wall? Surely you are therefore curtailing the ability to use the air behind it. I'm just asking for a friend. Let's speak with Annabel Denham, senior political commentator at The Telegraph. Morning to you, Annabel, and of course, air conditioning and fan expert, as we all know. So if anybody is the person to ask about keeping cool, Annabel, it's you.
That's absolutely correct. I'm quite the expert. Unfortunately, Ian, I'm sweltering, just like most of the country. And for all of my complaints about the English weather when it's hailstorms in spring, I must concede we feeling the heat right now.
Yeah, when it's 34. I was talking to a Spanish person about this, because we do this weird thing, don't we, as Brits, when we go, oh, it's 34 degrees, you know, people in Spain have 34 degrees all the time, so stop complaining. The Spanish guy I was talking to said, no, if it's 34 degrees in Spain, it's still hot. We do complain. That's very hot. The difference is we have aircon in far more places than you guys might, but there's no doubt it is hot and you have a right to feel hot.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And the point you're making really is that other countries which are more accustomed to having heat waves are better equipped to deal with it.
Indeed.
Than we are. Air conditioning not standard here in Britain, and that means that there's no real sense that you can ever escape the heat. And I think we are going to have to adapt. Temperatures mercury rising above 30 degrees is coming with increasing frequency. If you compare this decade to the 1960s, the number of days that are going to be in the 30s, I think, is about 100 compared with, you know, half a dozen back then.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, Ian, but, you know, it's quite a staggering increase. And at the moment, I think culturally our society is in a slight denial about it and will stick it out and endure the hot weather with our fans. But they're no real match for 34, 35 degrees, are they? And perhaps we are going to have to move to a situation where air conditioning is the norm, but then Ed Miliband won't be very happy. I'm not sure what that will mean.
No, Miliband, he would discombobulate at the mere idea that you might start buying air conditioners and horrendous planet-destroying things like that. Let's move to, well, I think the story this morning that we heard, firstly, Annabelle, Anne Widdecombe has sadly died, aged 78, big career in politics. She was intelligent, she was bright, she was a conviction politician. She used to upset people. She looked like she meant business. She wasn't the kind of person that would sit down and go to a comedy gig with you, but she was nonetheless somebody who was very caring and very understanding and had a deep philosophical and ecclesiastical belief in the things she felt strongly about.
Well, she may not have gone to a comedy gig, but she was certainly capable of laughing at herself, wasn't she? Taking things in very good nature, as we saw when she went on Strictly Come Dancing. And I think a lot of it wasn't necessarily what she believed. She would toe, the line if it was required. And, often when you have a big beast of British politics die like this, Ian, it does lead to the question, do they make them like that anymore? Because there seems to be such a dearth of talent in Parliament as well.
And I don't mind a politician that I disagree with. If you think of people like Tony Benn or Dennis Skinner and these kind of huge figures of the left, they were amazing people to watch in action because they really did believe in what they said. They had an intelligence to it. There's lots of interesting stories about... I think it was after Margaret Thatcher was kind of outed as Prime Minister, but having like a tea and cake with Dennis Skinner in the tea rooms in Parliament, because there was an odd commonality there. They ferociously disagreed on policy, but they both had an almost immovable, but open to debate position on the things they truly believed in, and that's becoming increasingly a rarity.
Well, I think that there was a willingness to have their ideas rigorously tested. That's how you ensure that the policies that you're advancing are going to work. That was what the Stepping Stones project in the 4 years before Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister was really all about. It was ensuring that her ideas could survive contact with reality. And you're right, there was that mutual respect, I think, across the political divide that existed before. There weren't these ad hom, ad fem attacks where people just play the man or the woman and not the ball. Actually, people wanted to explore and debate and test their thoughts, their principles, their philosophies in a way that we don't really see enough at the moment. And they would do so with their own conviction, but I think a willingness to have their minds changed. As Keynes famously said, when the facts change, I change my mind. And is there that same willingness now? I'm not sure.
Well, we have a very different crock of politicians lurking around the place, and of course right front and centre of perhaps the classic example of that will be somebody like Andy Burnham. And I'm not saying this just to have a cheap pop at Andy Burnham. I think if I was asked to write a dissertation right now on this very point, I would be failing not to put Andy Burnham front and centre of the narrative and as a prime example of what we're talking about. I wouldn't say vacuous, that might be too unkind, but I would certainly say a lacking of a core philosophical idea when it comes to... I think that would be completely reasonable and very easy to prove. I think I'd walk out of there with the highest marks if I could make that argument, and I think I could make it rather easily. I do not know who the hell Andy Burnham is politically.
No, and I don't think that much has emerged over the last week or so. He obviously gave that speech in Manchester last Monday where we thought he was going to set out some sort of vision, agenda, maybe even some policies, but it was pretty thin gruel. Now, you could argue that he didn't want to scare the horses, that the policies will come later, but the problem that he's facing is he hasn't been in opposition. He doesn't have a shadow cabinet who have been gearing up for a general election and thus to be potentially the next government. He is going to have to hit the ground running. And there was a really interesting moment, Ian, yesterday on Political Thinking with Nick Robinson, in which Louise Haigh, who is one of the key figures behind the scenes of Project Andy, said that he'd been preparing for a year. Well, if that's the case, why is it that we know so little about his plans for the country. Now, you may argue that you don't necessarily need him to set out exactly who he's going to point into which ministerial roles, but you do need some sense of the direction that he wants to go in. And, I think one of his big problems is geopolitics. What is his foreign affairs agenda at a time when everything that happens in Britain domestically is influenced, impacted by what's going on overseas, be it energy costs, the cost of living, inflation, things like climate change, not to mention defence spending, foreign wars. Where does he stand on a lot of these issues? And how is he going to represent Britain overseas? Now, perhaps over the next few weeks, we will start to put some flesh on the bones. I certainly hope so. But of course, if people decide they don't really like it, by then it'll be too late, because he's got his 322 nominations from the Parliamentary Labour Party, and he's about to glide into number 10.
Indeed. What a curious time it's going to be. I think he might stumble on the same problems as Kier Starmer, to be honest, Annabelle. I think that the idea that Starmer came in on this ticket, we all thought, even those of us that all do this for a living, we kind of thought, it was going to be a bit of a Blair and Brown moment when Starmer's come in. He's clearly been cooking up some plans for the last couple of years, turns up in the big job, and it turns out that he hadn't been cooking up any plans at all. They were literally ill-prepared. And all they believed was that just by not being the Conservatives was enough to propel them to power and greatness. And, of course, it was a fatal error. And Kier Starmer is now paying the price. I think now Andy Burnham believes all he's got to be is not be Kier Starmer. I think he is potentially walking into the same problem.
You'd expect that Kier Starmer, especially being so recent, will offer some sort of cautionary tale. And I completely agree with you, Ian, that ultimately what happened was he carried a Ming vase up to the door of number 10, and then he entered and he kept on carrying it. He was ultimately afraid to do anything. I'm not sure he had a coherent set of beliefs. He certainly didn't seem to have any conviction, nor did he have any plan. I think he had a plan to win, but not a plan to govern. And I think the more that we reflect on Starmer, the more perhaps we have to realise that his entire project was about rescuing the Labour Party from Corbynism, which, to be fair to him, he was very successful in doing, but he was never meant to actually run the country. Will Andy Burnham fall into the same trap? Quite possibly when it comes to policies. We're not clear where he stands on possibly the biggest issue of the day, which is welfare reform. If we don't cut the benefits bill, we're not going to be able to do anything. No government is going to achieve very much because they're going to be so fiscally constrained. And, is Andy Burnham going to be willing to have a real battle with his backbenchers on that particular issue? I don't know. But the one thing that he does have, which Kier Starmer, really obviously lacked, was charisma and an ability to reach out, to engage with the British public. Whilst I don't necessarily agree with his policies, I think you have to concede that he's done a good job of coming across as our Andy, the quite likeable, well-meaning chap who's got decency and integrity and seems to enjoy politics, seems to enjoy the job, whereas Kier Starmer always, looked as though he was perpetually sort of frustrated and affronted. He didn't enjoy politics. And the other thing I suppose Andy Burnham will likely have, is much better management of the Parliamentary Labour Party that Kier Starmer always seemed to think was somebody else's responsibility.
Just finally, I think we can bring you the text of the day today, Annabelle. Morning, Ian. I can't see the problem with Count Binface. I once dated a girl who I started dating a girl who identifies as a wheelie bin. The only problem is I can't remember if I'm taking her out on Wednesday or Thursday. You see, it's that kind of humour, Annabelle, that keeps this show going.
Well, kudos to your listener and viewer.
Dave, yeah.
Yes, but, I think, what does this show? It shows that the British have got quite a good sense of humour and, never underestimate our ability to grab a particular cause and really run with it, as Boaty McBoatface or Susan Moyle demonstrated with the X Factor that she did. I can't remember all this.
Yes, I think it was the X Factor, wasn't it? Absolutely spot on. Love it. Annabelle, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy your weekend. Annabelle Denham, senior political commentator over there at The Telegraph. Back to that issue of fans, and more fans. Here's a voice note from Neil. Morning, Neil.
Morning, Ian. You keep saying it. The fan does suck in from behind, generally with a filter at the back. It can only push out what it checks in. Come on now, do a bit of research.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I love this one from Tony in Ruislip for kind of wordsmith fans, I suppose. The past few days, topics have been Farage or Farage. It's amazing how one change of a letter can create such a variation in topics. You'd think the English language wouldn't do that. You'd think, well, yeah, if you just vary one letter, you'd get a similar subject out of it. And the more letters you vary, the further away you go into another subject. Of course, there's no correlation with that. Farage, which is essentially our own invented, not necessarily ours, we have no copyright on it because we've been talking about fans and air conditioning and obviously because of the weather. Farage is also a vaguely sort of amusing, Barbara Windsor, Kenneth Williams-esque kind of word, and it also sounds like a place you might go on a caravan holiday in the southwest, where you have to, oh, we're going down to Farage for a couple of days. It's got all of that going on as well. Whereas Farage, of course, is the leader of a political party. A very, very different debate. Farage is interesting, though, because we've got so much discussion on the aircon versus fans and how effective are fans and are they really even worth the bother? Because after a while, they just move the air around. They're chopping up the air to a degree. Do they have suction on it? That seems to be... They suck the air in the back. There's no... Do you remember in electronics, the first time, probably the first year of secondary school, when you did some kind of tech and they gave you a circuit to make so you could actually connect a wire to a little light bulb, to a battery, and back to the light bulb. You could put a little switch in the middle of the circuit and turn it on and off, and it looked like the most amazing thing. And then they would introduce a little motor, and the motor would spin something around. And you thought, wow, this is incredible what I'm doing here. I'm connecting the wires, I've got the battery, got the motor, and I'm making like a little windmill going around. Now, that essentially is your fan. Your fan you'd buy in B&Q, right? It's a motor with some blades on it. There's no suction device in that. The Christian, our producer's looking at me going, I think there is. But where the hell is it then? Like a Hoover, why are we talking about this? In the Hoover, there's suction. There's devices and kit. By definition, you will naturally, if blades go around, it will be sucking and blowing all over the place at different times and different speeds. We will debate this for a long time. I think if you've just tuned in, you thought, what the hell is this? What am I listening to? Thank goodness Peter Blexley exists to bring some normality to proceedings. Morning to you, Peter.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Nice to have you with us. Are you an aircon man, a fan man? What's the deal at Blexley Towers?
We have a fan, and it's getting an awful lot of use at the moment.
Yeah. Do you know anything about the engineering of that fan? Because this seems to be very central to the debate we're having here.
Well, we clearly went to very different types of school because at my secondary school, we had no such thing as circuits and welding and motors and all that kind of stuff. The only circuits that I've ever been used to involve burpees, squat thrusts and push-ups, albeit a very, very long time ago, clearly.
True. Plus electricity wasn't invented then, Peter, was it?
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
There was that. Let's have a look at this story because I thought this was really interesting. We remember the armed cops at Heathrow that, I know we can overplay the word armed. If you're a cop at Heathrow, then you're likely to be armed. Nobody called the armed cops, but nonetheless, the optics were terrible. 5 armed police officers detaining Graeme Linhan. He's the comedy writer, the creator and writer of Father Ted. They held him on suspicion of inciting hatred under the Public Order Act as he returned from a trip from Arizona. He's now been given £25,000 by the Met, which one assumes is some kind of apology, compensation. Perhaps they put it with caveats saying, you know, without prejudice. I don't know. But nonetheless, it looks like a victory for free speech. I think Peter's frozen on us in that moment. Maybe my question was so long that he literally froze. We'll come We'll come back to Peter in a second. Nigel says a fan is a device for moving air from one place to another, a pump, if you like. If you look at your fan in a box, it will have an air inlet hole or a grill behind the fan. Yes, and I would argue there's a safety reason for that, OK, because you don't want to leave anything to chance. But, of course, you can buy fans that are encased, and that's the bit that I don't get. They might not be very good fans, largely encased. They'll have a little hole. I don't know if the whole functionality of the fan is dependent on the bit at the back that Nigel alludes to there. This one from Amanda. Anne Widdecombe, huge loss to Reform UK and politics, a true superstar who will be sadly missed. Sean in Somerset, David Miliband on manoeuvres for a place in the cabinet. So David, Ed and Burnham, the Labour rejects are now in charge. What wasn't good enough 16 years ago is now the saviour, apparently. Makes me chuckle. The country's going backwards. Yeah. It's a very good point, isn't it? Ed Miliband tried for leadership, ran for Prime Minister, of course, leader of the party, put himself up for election, failed. Ed Miliband, Andy Burnham, twice tried to be leader of the Labour Party, failed. David Miliband tried to be leader of the Labour Party and lost to his brother Ed Miliband. So every one of them has failed in either Prime Ministerial hopes or leadership hopes. The only person that's made Prime Minister is Andy Burnham, and he hasn't done that because everybody voted for him. He's done that because a bloke called Josh went, OK, Andy, I'll roll over for you as long as you give me a big job down there in the smoke at some point. That'd be fantastic, thank you. So that's what happened, and that's how it's worked. 0344 499 1000. We are still trying to get Peter back with us, aren't we? We'll keep giving it a go, don't worry. We're going to take a... Are we pausing here? I think we're going to take a very short pause, quick break, back with more from you, and hopefully from Peter as well in just a couple of moments.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. TalkSport have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just a reminder, we were just in the middle of talking with Peter Blexley. We may be able to get Peter back on. It's interesting to get his view on this. The story that Graeme Linhan has been given 25,000 quid by the Met Police. This was after the arrest at Heathrow Airport, after he tweeted something that was regarded at the time, the 5 officers that arrested him on suspicion of inciting hatred, under the Public Order Act when he returned from the States. Because in the Post, what he tweeted was this: if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he's committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. And, you know, I think the last point was a bit tongue-in-cheek. I think he was making the point, you can disagree with this if you want, he was I say I think he was making the point. No, he was making the point that whatever reason you are going to give, you feel like a woman, you think you're a woman, you are. It doesn't matter. You're a male in a public space. That's his position, and that's the position he was making. So by dint of the fact you are there in the public, in a female-only space, is in itself an abusive act. It doesn't matter what you want to say, doesn't matter whether you're not doing anything, just standing there looking, you know, calm or whatever. It's a bloke in a female toilet. Peter Blexley is back with us. So, Peter, we got scuppered and cut off. I think the establishment has been playing games with us here. Graeme Linhan given 25,000 quid by the Met after, one would assume, I doubt whether they've said that this is, you know, we got it all wrong, but this was after the arrest on suspicion of inciting racial hatred.
Yeah, well, the Met have apologised, and they've said that as a result of this debacle, they will no longer investigate non-crime hate incidents. But the Met got it horrendously wrong. 25 grand for Graeme Linhan is simply not enough, but he's chosen to accept that. But this is in the week where a report into policing by Lord Blunkett and Lord Herbert criticised senior police leadership in the UK because of its cronyism, nepotism and corruption. And this is endemic. This is symptomatic of the catastrophic state of British policing. And we need not evolution in policing now, we need a revolution to get policing anywhere near what it should be in order to serve the public properly.
With cases such as this, I mean, when the police said we won't investigate this kind of stuff anymore, we know there have still been some cases where the police, not necessarily the Met, but some places have. It doesn't feel like this nonsense of policing tweets and basic common sense opinion is necessarily fully over, Peter.
No, unfortunately, I don't think it is, because talk's cheap. And whilst the police have said they won't investigate it, I think you'll probably find that other examples of people freely expressing what they want to express, the police will be looking to see if it does breach any other type of law. We still have a very, very long way to go here. But policing in Britain is in a catastrophic state. There is so much overreach. There really is. They've gone beyond what the police were conceived for, which was to prevent crime, to investigate crime when it happened, and lock up bad people. Look at where it is now, encroaching into every aspect of our lives. In fact, my local police this week, ridiculously, were issuing weather advice. That's not the job of the police. Rein your neck in, do what you're supposed to do, and go and stop some crime or lock up bad uns.
Fair point as well. I don't think everyone would disagree with that. Peter, thank you, mate, for that. Peter Blexley, have a great weekend, by the way. I know you're madly busy at the moment, but enjoy the football too. Peter Blexley, former Met detective. So much to look at. There's so much to get. We'll talk to Alex Phillips shortly on what is happening on her programme. First, let's get a voice note. This comes from Boz. It's on Andy Burning. Morning, Boz.
Morning, Ian. Travelling Boz here. So I've just seen that thing on Burnham, right? It seems like it's real. I've gone in to vote for myself, and I seem like the only candidate there. It's an absolute farce what's going on here. They've shifted the goalposts as usual. Now they said they were plotting this for a year. Listen, the man's a grifter.
Yes, and it's going to be very hard for him to shake that unless he can absolutely prove, and he will have to do this quite quickly, that he's not a grifter, he's a doer, and he's a doer for all, not just led by some bizarre left-wing fantasy of what Green Party and extreme leftists would like to see. Is he going to, because he's making those noises. Here's what's happening with Andy Burnham. I promise you, this is what's happening. He's taken a punt that in the country, statistically, there are more lefties than there are righties. Now, I've always found that stat very, very hard to believe, but I've spoken to Rafe and goodness knows who else on this very point, that apparently, certainly who mobilised to vote, if nothing else, slightly more on the left than there is on the right. So go for the left. That's where the smart money is. That's why he's playing a bit more to the left, because the basic mathematics say that would be in his advantage. He's got more chance of galvanising an undecided lefty than he has an undecided righty. It's that simple. It's that simple. That's all I'm thinking. It's going to be horrendous, though, by the way. I don't mean the show that's coming after us. That's never horrendous, of course, because Alex Phillips presents it. I've been watching you all morning on the telly, Alex.
Really?
Inadvertently, sitting there behind Anne Widdecombe as she's giving it both barrels in the European Parliament. Yeah, you knew Anne well as well. She was a lovely, gorgeous person. And while she was
also ferocious.
I was about to say, while she was ferocious, while she took no shizzle, she didn't hang around, didn't mix her words. She was a bit clunky and uncomfortable, but I think she had a heart of gold.
4'0" and the scariest person I've ever met, but I adored her. We all adored her. And, you know, she never held back an opinion. She would give you unsolicited advice, unsolicited conviction. But that's what I loved about her, because people like that don't exist in politics anymore. She wasn't about party first. She wasn't about, you know, a particular band or popularity or focus groups or opinion polls. She was about, this is the correct direction of travel, and I will firmly stand by my principles forever. You will not budge me. And she would fight, fight, fight. And they just don't make them like that anymore. And a very staunchly Christian woman, extremely staunchly Christian woman. But she was mischievous, you know? She was very sort of, she had put on this air of being very severe and very proper, and I don't like silliness. But when silliness happened around her, you could see the sort of glint in her eye and the sort of wry twitch of a smile at the corner of the mouth. And, you know, she adored the company of men especially. She was a real sort of, it sounds strange, but a boy's boy. She didn't mind locker room humour, bawdiness, strength. She was no nonsense and herself a woman of great religious conviction. But she wasn't, you know, she wasn't a wet at all. Definitely not a wet.
She was definitely not that. You're going to be talking a bit about that. What else is happening after 10 o'clock, Alex Phillips? Because, of course, we've got a lot going on at the moment.
I have not been on air since the whole announcement of the Clacton by-election. Farage versus the bin.
No, you haven't,
I have not. So have I got things to say about that? Oh, yes, I do.
Farage versus the bin. I mean, does it, very briefly, does it... I mean, it's funny, obviously, just the words of it, Farage versus the bin. Has it... You see, I keep saying this, not everybody thinks this. I think Nigel can only come out well from this.
Oh, he will. I can see strategically exactly what they should do. And that is they've got to now, in a while, give it a bit of breathing space, and they've got to own the narrative. Because what the establishment, thinking they're so clever, all taking selfies, going, yeah, can't bin face, come be a politician. All the media class chuckling, isn't it funny, ha, 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 we've duped Farage. This is democracy. These are voters. How dare they? And actually, I think the personification of the establishment, all the other political parties, as a big trash can, is about right.